speaking about the Moors. And so many of you have asked me, who are the Moors? Give us more detail. Give us details about the history, where you all came from. Is it true that you're not really Black? So, having said that, today I have a wonderful guest. His name is Lloyd Michael Douglas. So, allow me to give an introduction about Brother Douglas, and then I will yield the floor to him so that he can take his time and educate us today. Lloyd Michael Douglas owns a digital marketing firm. He is an author, philosopher, and amateur history buff. Mr. Douglas embarked on his journey into the Moorish paradigm upon converting to Orthodox Islam with his wife and his child in 2004, taking on the name Sharif Ali. After meeting Swift Angel Elihu Pleasant Bay in 2005 and learning of the stripped nationality of the people misnomered African American or Black, Douglas L. began focusing his studies on Moorish science, nationality, jurisprudence, and history. Today, Douglas L. runs the website MoorsinAmerica.com and corresponding podcast, which focuses on issues pertaining to Moorish Americans. Brother Douglas L. has interviewed several prominent Moorish scholars and divine ministers such as Taj Tariq Bey, Asir Duke of Tears, Sheikh Azim Hopkins Bey, Abdullah El Talib Mosi Bey, and Supreme Grand Sheik of the Moor Science Temple of America, Brother D. Bailey L. Brother Douglas L. and his wife Drusilla joined the Moor Science Temple of America in 2018 and received a warrant of authority from Supreme Grand Sheik of the Moor Science Temple of America, Brother D. Bailey L., to open their own local temple in Columbus, Ohio, the next year in 2019. As leaders of their local temple, they teach and do the great, mighty, amazing work of uplifting fallen humanity in Central Ohio. Family, help me welcome Brother Lloyd Michael Douglas to the platform. I yield the floor to you.
Thank you. Gratitude. I appreciate you so much. It's such an honor to be here on your show. Yes. I appreciate the information that you're sharing, and I see that it's growing and it's prospering. You have a lot of people paying attention, and it's because you're doing such a great job. So we're definitely subscribed, and we share your videos too. And I love what you're doing, and it's such a pleasure to be on here. Thank you for having me on here so that I could share this message. First and foremost, though, I want to give praise to the Creator, Allah. That's what I call him, but it doesn't matter what name really that you refer to the Creator, or if you just say the universe. We give praise to the Creator, and also I give honors to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And I think after watching this program, everyone will have a good understanding of why I say that. And then we just give honors to everyone, all the light bringers here, everybody, to you, of course, and also to everyone listening and sharing this woman's great videos in her channel, and helping to spread the light to everyone on the planet. We're all light bringers, and I really appreciate, once again, just the opportunity to be here.
It's my pleasure. I'm so glad that you had contacted me not long ago, because we met when you and your wife were in Brazil, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that years ago?
Yeah, it was a long, might even have been a decade ago.
That's what I
goes by so fast. Yeah.
Yes. So I told my eldest son that I was having you on the show, and he was elated. He follows you, he respects your work, and so he's excited to see you uploading more videos and educating the people. So I do have a question, Brother Douglas, and that is, who are the Moors? Because most people haven't heard of these people that call themselves Moors.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that I know everybody has. And I just want to say before sharing the information on the Moors, that this is something that doesn't just affect Black people. Okay. And I'm going to use the word Black, even though as a Moorish American, I feel like that's a term that deludes to slavery. I'm just going to use that so that we can relate to everyone. So I want to say that this topic doesn't just pertain to Black people. So everyone watching, especially people in America, this should be important to you as well. And once you watch this, you'll understand why. This is something that actually affects all of us, all of us. And the reason is because a lot of information has been suppressed and is still being suppressed. And whenever you hide things, whenever you're trying to suppress things, there's another effect of that, right? When you're suppressing things and hiding things, that means that everyone's being held back from information that could free them. Okay. And so we definitely want to open the doors up. We want to remove the secrets. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be unveiling a lot of secrets. And some of the things that we're going to speak about today may help connect the dots, maybe for mysteries or things that you may have been having. And I mean, when I say you, I mean all of us, right? Everyone watching. So this is something, just to make sure it's known, this isn't just something for Black people. This is for everyone.
Okay. And I like that because I study the universal laws, and the first universal law is the law of oneness. And that is that we are all connected. Everything is interconnected. Every single person on the planet, every animal, every sentient being, the leaves, the grass, the ants, the insects, the animals, all human beings came from source, and therefore we are one. So I appreciate you saying that. What you're sharing today affects us all.
I agree. Definitely at a spiritual level, all is one. And then physically on this earth, as far as we're concerned as humans, there's only one race, right? We have all these ethnic groups, but there's one race. And so definitely the suppression of something like this needs to be revealed to all, so that you just know what you want to do with this information, whether you choose to ignore or to look further, to do your own research. Absolutely. And if I may, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, please.
Okay, hang on one second. Okay. Let me get this up.
Because we recognize that we have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived.
I don't know if you can hear that, but
I can hear it.
Let's get it going. Okay, so let me go back.
Because we recognize that we have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived.
I just wanted to share that because we've all been bamboozled. All of us, we've all been lied to. And it once again, just going back to what was said earlier, this does not just affect one group of people. Okay, we've all been lied to. And so as we go into this, I'm hoping everybody shares this video to help get this information out, because once again, this is something that affects the entire nation, maybe even the entire world. Wow. Okay, and so when you see on the screen, in 2020, Trump told, speaking specifically to those classified as Black African Americans, he said, African Americans need to understand their history, or you will go back to it again. Okay. And that statement was real vague, but it's like Trump was speaking to us in code. Now, I believe it may have been later on that year, or it may have been, I believe it was later on that year, that same year, Trump recognized all presidents recognized the longstanding bond between the United States of America and Morocco. The reason is because Morocco was the first nation, or the first kingdom, to recognize the United States, the early colony, as a nation. Okay, the President Obama did it. Everyone's done it, and Donald Trump did this as well. And in addition to that, there was a conflict over there in North Africa with Morocco, and they're increasing their borders. They're claiming some land in Western Sahara. So he recognized their sovereignty over the furthest west, Western Sahara. Now, on one level, on the surface level, that's strictly speaking about the dealings over there, specifically with Morocco and that area in Western Sahara. But on another level, okay, this is also speaking about us. the furthest west. And we'll go further into that. I think you'll understand by the end of this why I'm saying that. So the president is speaking in code. Okay, we're going to connect the dots today. All right, now for people misnomered as Black, there's a man named the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. He's born in North Carolina in 1886, and he made the transition, or most people would say died. He made the transition in 1929. He started an organization called the Moorish Science Temple of America with the purpose of uplifting fallen humanity. Wow. Okay, uplifting fallen humanity. Now, once again, I said we're going to connect the dots. You'll know why I'm speaking about this person and what was done and how this relates to the Moors. Okay, so for a lot of people, you may have heard about Where's Waldo. You may have seen this before. They have these puzzle games where you're looking and Waldo's in there somewhere. There's so much activity going on, though, that you don't notice him right away, but he's there the whole time. Right, here's another example. It's so much activity going on. Everybody's doing their own thing, just like we are in life. We're all doing our own thing. You don't know where he is until someone points it out to you. Right now, you can maybe see him up here in the little circle. Okay, but he was there the whole time. He was always there. And so this is the same way with the true history, the history of this nation and even of the world. It's always been there, but it's been hidden in our face. And I think by the end, it will make sense why that's being shown. So 93 years ago, nearly 100 years ago, this man that was born in North Carolina, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, declared us a nation. When I say us, I mean the people misnomered as Black. Back in those days, they were called Negroes. Then and then when I say those days, speaking on the 1920s, then maybe by the next decade, they were renamed. Who does that? They were renamed, or they were being referred to now as colored. Okay. So they weren't being called Black back then. Matter of fact, in the 1920s and 30s, and even the 40s, and even the 50s, and even part of the 60s, Black was seen as an insult by us. Right? We started to warm up to that when things like James Brown made the song Black and I'm Proud. Okay, so we've been constantly getting renamed, but this man declared those people a nation, all right, in 1928. Matter of fact, on October 17th, 1928, the first Moorish American recognized in law is the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. He draped an American flag around a little girl and a Moorish flag around American flag around a little boy, Moorish flag around a little girl, and declared us a nation. He had a parade. In the parade, they had camels. There were delegates or people from all over the nation who were coming to represent their Moorish communities. Every city that there was a temple in, the temple was the center of that community. So people came from all over, and he announced to the world that we were a nation. Okay, but none of this is being spoken on. But by the time we get to the end of this, you may understand why this has almost been scrubbed from history. Now, back in those days in the 1920s, these are just some images from Google, but this is a pretty good image of how our people carried themselves. It's not like what we see today. Like, you may even, I'm 40, my mom used to talk about how when she went out, people used to dress up to look nice, and she's not even really that much older than me. But just an example, going back in time, we didn't even go to the store without looking nice, right? We dressed nice. We had more, you could say more class. Our families were held to esteem. We felt the family was important. If you see this picture down in the bottom, this is in Harlem. A lot of those businesses were Black-owned businesses, right, during segregation. You see also in the other corner, there's a Black police officer helping, pointing the citizen in the other direction and just showing us to show our people. We knew we had to do for ourselves. We were together. Our Prophet Noble, us in the mindset of seeing ourselves as a nation, right? We were already working towards that direction. Okay, and I wanted to solve this puzzle. Is why was it even necessary for someone to declare us a nation? And he did this, and they had businesses all over the country, and it's not even mentioned in mainstream history. It's like he didn't even exist. Okay, so by the time we get to the end of this, once again, you'll understand why we're using this imagery. This thing has been hidden right in our face. Okay, and so of course, we have Black History Month in February, right? Black History Month, everyone knows about that. But there's a problem with that. Black history starts at slavery. It literally starts at slavery. Now you see in the bottom in this image, it says Moorish history goes back much farther. Okay, there's our history doesn't really start with slavery, but that's the label, that's the tag that's been branded on us, that we started slavery. This image is from PBS website speaking about the history of Black people in America, and it literally starts at slavery. There's another image. I saw this on Twitter and it blew my mind because it's from some African and Black history Twitter page. And they said on this day, this was in August, on 1619, the first Black slaves landed in Jamestown, Virginia. The history of Black America began. Okay. And I don't know who runs this Twitter account. It has nearly 400,000 followers. Okay. So this is the image. This is the mindset of our people. And this is what we've been taught to think. This is what everyone's been taught to think. That's why I'm saying this video is for everyone, right? So everyone's been trained to think that we start at slavery. Okay. Anytime you see someone that looks like us in history, a slave tag will somehow be put on him. And so there's a reason, and there's actual laws and things that have been done to make this so. What you see on the screen is the Negro Law of South Carolina. A lot of people, most people never heard of it. This act was passed in 1740. If you look at Section 1, it declares all Negroes and Indians to be slaves, the offspring to follow the condition of the mother. Okay, but if you look down at Section 4, it says the term Negro is confined to slave Africans. And then in parentheses, it says the ancient Berbers. We'll understand what this is really talking about. So the term Negro is confined to slave Africans and their descendants. It does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa, such as the Egyptians, Moors, or the Negro Asiatics, such as the Lascars. Okay, so we're going to make sense of this. But once again, this law was getting passed and it defined Negroes and it confined them to slavery. You descend from enslaved Africans. That's it. Another interesting thing on here, Section 3, it says Indians and descendants of Indians are regarded as free Indians in amity with this government until the contrary be shown. What is the contrary? It says in the second provision of Section 1 of the Act of 1740, it is declared every Negro, Indian, mulatto, and mestizo is a slave unless the contrary can be made to appear. So they're declaring everyone, even the Indians, even the indigenous, to be slaves. Unless the contrary can be made to appear. What is the contrary? Okay, in the same, it is immediately thereafter provided the Indians in amity with this government, except in which case the burden of proof shall lie on the defendant, that is on the person claiming the Indian plaintiff to be a slave. So what it's saying is that if you look like a Negro, like it says in Section 2, that this provision has been uniformly held that the color is prima facie evidence that the party bearing the color of a Negro, mulatto, mestizo is a slave. But the same prima facie result does not follow from the Indian color. What was the Indian color? If you look up the term American, I believe from the 1865 Webster's Dictionary, it describes American as the copper-colored indigenous people from the Americas, but now applies to the descendants of Europeans. So what this thing in Section 2 and this act in the Negro Law of South Carolina is telling you is that color is the main evidence that the party bears the color of the Negro, mulatto, or mestizo and is a slave. But that same evidence does not follow from the Indian color. So the Indian color is saying that people that were, brown skin, copper skin, they can't say that's evidence that you're an Indian. That's evidence that you are a slave, a Negro. Okay, so this is very real. We're going to explain this, though. This is not the only state that passed laws like this. It's just one example. You have black codes from in the 1860s, right, or 1800s. These various black codes further constricted the movement and the ability of Black people who were free to vote, to do anything, right? It restricted their freedom, okay? They were basically slave codes. And this was going on from the 1700s through the 1800s. And these were laws that were being passed, okay? And so it further, it made sure that those who had that color, once again, that skin tone, were classified as slaves. And this is 1700s through the 1800s. So before anyone says that's old news, there's something called the Standard Form 181 that is still in use by the government today to classify the different races, even though there's only one race. They're really talking about classifying the ethnic groups. Okay, and this is used for the census, it's used in employment, it's used in various other aspects of government. When you look at the racial, or I'm going to say ethnic groups, even though it says racial, when you look at the ethnic groups, there's one thing that stands out. Okay, so everyone is connected to an original people of somewhere except for Black or African American. Everyone is. When you look at white, it says a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. Okay, everyone on here, Asian, original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia, and so on. Everyone, except when you get to Black or African American, it says a person having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa. Okay, so there's a disconnect. We're being disconnected from the family of humans. If you look a little further too, Hispanic is also in that same position as well. They're not connected to any original peoples. Okay, so this was being done 1700s, 1800s, but we're still dealing with it today because, as I said, that SF 181 standard form, that's being used in government every day. Okay, so there's something that happened. You know, what does it mean to be Black or African American? This is from a book. This painting that's on the cover of that book is very old, and it's showing a Moor laying down his turban, laying down his sword, and becoming a Christian, getting baptized, getting being made a Christian. Wow. All right, so he's laying down his own culture, his own religion that even predates the Europeans adopting Christianity. And he's taking on something else. So he's being given a religion. He's being civilized, even though his people were already civilized. So this was a process that we went through to get to here. And this is why I'm saying this is affecting everyone. Yes. It's not a Black problem. This is not a Black problem. So we were being classified as something that is less than human. I'll come back to this. Hang on. So, okay, all right. There's a book called A Negro or Beast in the image, created in the image of God. Negro, Negro, a beast or created in the image of God. Okay, and this book is actually in law libraries, such as the one in, I believe, in Harvard. And before anyone says that the person who wrote this book is a racist, he's just putting all these things in there. This book is making the case for the Negro being basically the missing link. It's not really connected to the family of humans. You see this image in here before anyone's like, this is just racist. No, this book is in law libraries. Okay, and as you can see from the imagery there, it's got the direct line of kinship with God, and there's like a European Adam and Eve, and then you've got this caricature of the so-called Negro out there in the dark. Okay, so this lines right up with that standard form, still showing we descend from the Black racial groups of Africa, while everyone else is an original people. And so the things that were up here on this screen, these are just some of the imagery, you know, some of the things that's getting pumped out, not just to our own people, but also to the world. Just traveling to other countries, you'll see that rap and just the imagery, like this whole persona of African Americans, it's being pumped to the world, and a lot of it is negative. It's negative. And once again, I'm saying this is not a Black problem. This affects everyone, especially in America. I was just at Walmart yesterday, and there was a young man there, and he's he's like putting groceries in the car. He's a grown-up, but he's like probably in his 20s or something. He's putting groceries in the car for his grandma. Then he gets in the car with her and they drive off, and his pants were sagging. And it was so ridiculous, like, whole backside out, all his underwear showing. And guess what? He was of European descent. Okay. And I'm only sharing this because this is not a Black problem. If we have influence, this video that's up here from Jason Derulo, this song was super popular. It's called Savage Love. It had over 101 million views. This song down there in the right corner, that's from Meg Thee Stallion. She had that song called Savage. And that song was huge. I think Beyonce redid it. This is 21 Savage. He's not even from America. This guy's from London. And he's coming over here making music about killing Black people. 21 Savage. So this imagery, this influence that we have, it's being used for negative purposes. Pills and automobiles. Chris Brown, 300 million views. Right? Rihanna makes great music, but she's also pushing the same thing. Didn't they tell you that I was a savage? She's not trying to get married, right? So this is the thing that's getting pumped to the world, and people are just eating it up. And this is what it means to be Black for a lot of people. This is another thing. They got the song, Meg Thee Stallion. The song is the B word, right? Okay, women are calling themselves that. Now, scientifically, the B word is a female dog, wolf, fox, or otter. So we are taking on this tag of being a beast, a carnivorous mammal, and thinking it's cool. And so this is the exact opposite of who we are. People, guns, drugs, in the videos, it's just ridiculous. The imagery that's getting pushed out. And this is the opposite of who we are. But once again, this goes back to us being disconnected from the original peoples. Now let's speak about who we actually are. Okay, we've gone through a process to get to this point. And when this image, this up here on the screen, this is another I guess you could say kind of like a quasi primate type of creature, similar to what was up on the screen before, where I had the image from the book, having us out of the direct line of kinship with God, where we're not even human. So this creature is called the troglodyte Negor. Okay. And basically this is what we have been, without us even knowing, unknowingly have been pushed into this category. And once again, this affects everyone. So it doesn't matter if we call ourselves Black, African American. Now you have FBA, foundational Black Americans, ADOS, American descendants of slaves, right? These are the people who are supposed to be pushing for reparations, starting themselves in slavery. Formerly, they were known as Negroes. And after that, they were called colored, right? Before they got us to take on the Black tag. So unknowingly, these people are living a fictitious existence and don't even realize that this leaves them perpetually vulnerable, right? And there's that tag Negro or Black, they carry a vibration, right? Spelling, you're casting spells. So if you look up Negro in gematria, you'll see that it's tied to death. It's literally Negro and corpse have the same frequency. In gematria, that's looking at letters and numbers from the ancient Kabbalah perspective, right? So they carry that same vibration and energy. So we don't even know that. The negrification actually has a definition, and that's the fact or act of making Negro, placing under control of Blacks. Okay, you can look that up yourself. This is making us non-descendable, right? Where we can't create descendants. We're stuck. All right. I think the sister has something to add too.
Yes, please.
Definitely. Peace and love, sis.
Peace and love, Empress.
I was just wanting to add, if you pick up a Black's Law dictionary, they changed some of the stuff in it. So you have to get a fourth edition.
Okay.
It's a lot older.
Okay.
But if you look up the word Black, in the Black's Law Dictionary, it says civilita mortuus, that is civilly dead in the eyes of the law. And that is so important for us to understand, because when we go into these courtrooms as Black people, this is the definition that you are getting under, and that is a dead person. And that is so important to understand, because when you have no rights and when your rights are stripped from you, then you're pretty much a walking target in this world.
Wow.
Yes, this is very important to understand.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Because at some point I'm going to ask you, Brother Douglas, if lawyers and judges know this.
Okay, I would say maybe not everyone. You know, there are definitely some lawyers and judges who do know this.
Okay.
All right, and they're not speaking on it, you know, maybe because they're binded. And that's something too that I think once we get towards the end of this, you'll see there's definitely people out there that know and that hide this.
Okay.
I'm gonna touch on that definitely. We'll come right back to that too, especially speaking with the things that Trump was speaking on just last year and the year before last. So once again, coming back to this, 93 years ago, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali declared these same people that were speaking about a nation. Okay, he in chapter 47 of the Holy Koran of the Moor Science Temple of America, he gives us the name of a Mexim as the first true and divine name of Africa. All right, so right now that may not make sense, but just in a few minutes it will. He gives us our divine origin, something that's been hidden. We're gonna make sense of this. Just skipping down to verse 6 in the chapter 47, it says, the Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit Northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their inhabitation and dominion extended from Northeast and Southwest Africa across the Great Atlantis, even into the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands before the great earthquake, which caused the Great Atlantic Ocean. And then just skipping down, what your ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. And remember that picture, those images that were up showing our people, or showing Black people in the 1920s. Yeah. This is who he was bringing that message to. Okay, so just looking at the globe, looking at how the continents are formed, you can see how some of these things can potentially be put together, how it fits together like a jigsaw puzzle. Also, there's a New York Times article. Things are starting to come out. There's a New York Times article that says that at one point in time, New York and Morocco were connected by a land bridge. Wow. And if you actually, I think that article's in here too, but if you look at this image on the right, you can see how the northeastern part of America fits in there, like right in there in North Africa. Okay, all this is going to come into play though, and once again, this affects everyone. Okay, so he came to those people to tell them who they were. All right, now when you look at who actually inhabited the Americas, even pre-European colonization or European conquest, there's an image right here. It says portrait of Inca nobleman and his sons. All right, and this is from 1599. And they're wearing a mixture of Spanish clothing, but also Incan gold adornments. Right there, Incan noblemen. They are called, I think this image is called the Three Dons, right? And Don, of course, signifies nobility, lords or gentlemen. They were Incan noblemen, and look at them, right? They're dark skinned. Now, this book, I believe, is from a book by Jack D. Forbes. I actually have it in here. Jack D. Forbes was the expert on Native American history. He was an indigenous, a Native American. But some people, if we don't know our own history, will try to tell you that these three Incan noblemen must have been escaped slaves who somehow rose up to become, noblemen, to become lords, rulers amongst the indigenous class. Okay. If we don't know our history, people will tell us that. The painting that you see on the right, it's just a part of a mural that shows a long line of lineage of different Incan rulers. Wow. Okay. And what's highlighted over here, it says Carlos Quinto. Carlos Quinto was a Spaniard who came over here. So this is Spanish conquest. The one before him would have been the last purebred, Incan ruler. And Carlos Quinto would have been a Spaniard who took over. Now, this image is not really good because this is an actual old, very, very old painting. Okay. But he was the first Spaniard, the first European emperor of the Inca. And as you can see, it looks like he's the same complexion, if not darker, than the indigenous, which means that some of those Spaniards, many of those Spaniards who came over here were of Moorish bloodline. And this is how they were able to just come in many ways and take over. There was a trust level going on because they're thinking they're dealing with their own people. Moving forward, since we're speaking about the Inca people, the noble class of the Incas wore the same thing that I'm wearing on my head, a fez, right? There's a book called Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx. It's written by Augustus Plongeon, who was, I believe he was of nobility. He was from France, and his family had money. So he was able to finance his own excavations. He was all throughout Central and South America, especially in the Yucatan, doing his own excavations and writing his own books. And the information that he was putting out, he was just telling the truth about everything that he saw. He was able to eventually to be able to read the inscriptions, like the hieroglyphics over here and everything. And he put out, now once I read this, you may get an idea of why, but he put out information that did not fit into the mainstream. His books, though, were not shunned. They were held to high esteem in organizations such as the Rosicrucian Order, right? Because he was putting out the truth, and there's some organizations that wanted that information. So in this book, he speaks about the nobility class in Peru. All right. And I'll just quote it. Garcilaso de la Vega, Cieza de Leon, Acosta, and other writers on Peruvian customs and manners inform us that the fringe and tassel of the Yantu royal headdress of the Incas were made of fine crimson wool. Now, our fezzes, actually our temple, we make fezzes. These are made out of wool, and it's got a tassel on it, and crimson is dark red. So they were wearing yantus, but if you call a yantu in your language, it's still a fez to me. So the Incan nobles were wearing fezzes. If you see this image up here in the right, it's got a statue from ancient Egypt. And this is of a pharaoh who would have been an Egyptian king, a ruler. He's wearing a fez. If you look down a little bit, this is one of the stone heads found in the Yucatan in Mexico. These are the Olmec people, right? This headdress that he's got on actually looks like it has tassels hanging down. Maybe even has ropes tied around it at the bottom, such as a turban. Who knows? All the way out to the Pacific Islands, you have the Easter Island heads. I used to see the Easter Island heads all the time, but I never knew that they had ones where they were wearing these red headdresses. Okay, and these are huge. They weigh tons, just like the Olmec heads, and they're made out of, I believe, volcanic rock. So they put a lot of work into making sure that that crimson red headdress shows. All right, but this has been found all throughout the world, especially throughout the Americas, even all the way out to the Pacific Ocean. Okay, what you'll see here, I'll have to get the title for this book. I forget what it is. It may be America as it is. I believe this book is like 500 years old, and it describes all the indigenous people. This image that's up here is from Peru, and this person has on a turban, I believe, with feathers in it. You can see that clearly. There's a person with a turban that has feathers in it, and then there's another person with a turban. Okay, and these were the indigenous people from Peru. All right. once again, we have ancient structures in Peru. This is Cusco, which is high up in the mountains. There's a lot going on in Peru, actually throughout the Americas. This is from Miamisburg. There's a mound, a huge mound. It's a pyramid, basically, in Miamisburg. You have the Serpent Mounds here in Ohio. A lot going on here. Excuse me, here. But this is found throughout the Americas, especially up and down the Mississippi. Several pyramids. Then, of course, in Mexico, we have the pyramids all over the place. These are temples, right? Several of the pyramids actually have their meeting place or temple at the top. One of the largest, or the largest pyramid in the world, is actually in Mexico as well. When you go inside of Bonampak, which is also in Mexico, and you look at the walls, the people, there's actually one temple that is super well preserved, and the paintings still have color, and you can see the people's how they look. You can also see their headdresses. Some of them have dreadlocks. You probably can't see this image that was at the bottom real well, but they actually have dreadlocks. Some of these people are wearing fezzes, and some have turbans. Okay, that's in Bonampak. Some of these images, these are images of the indigenous Americans, and these images are from the 17th, 18th, and 19th century, and many of these were being made in Europe. And what they were doing, they were describing the American Indians as Blackamoors. Okay, and this is what they were being depicted as in sculptures as well as in paintings. Okay, and just once again, you may be able to see this better. The people look like they have braids or dreadlocks. The image down in the right-hand corner, this is a statue that's priceless. And I believe this is depicting the indigenous people in Florida, and it's called a Blackamoor Indian. Okay, and you see he's dripping with all the, all the ice. He's got all the gold chains and everything on, something that we're still doing to this day, right? But we're doing it in a lower state, but it's still there. Okay, and then just once again, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, that same man that we were discussing earlier, who declared us a nation, he wore the turban with the fez in it. Americans, indigenous Americans, always depicted as dark-skinned, wearing a turban with that same fez in it. Okay, so something very powerful is being revealed to us. This image is up here on the screen. This is a statue from, I believe, from Veracruz. So it's in Mexico. I believe it's called Old Man with the Hat. That's just the name they put on it. But this hat has a tassel on it. It's a fez with a rope tassel, hanging down. Right. So, to me, that's an old man in a fez.
Yes.
Okay. What you see on the screen now, just describing the Phoenician people, right? The Phoenician people lived in Carthage, Semitic city of North Africa. Okay. The Phoenician people were seafarers. They're also connected to ancient Atlantis. I'll speak about that in a little bit, but there's no real reason, given the mainstream version of history, for any Phoenician artifacts at all to be found in the Americas, right? Pre-European conquest. No reason at all, but it's been found here. Okay, just going back to the Phoenician though, just looking at the term for Canaanites, which is important because the prophet reconnected us to Canaanite and the Moabites. Okay, when you look at the Canaanites, those are one of the main branches of the great Semitic family. Now everybody's going at Kanye West, and he's saying, you can't call me anti-Semitic because I am Semitic, right? So the Canaanites inhabited Palestine, the Mauritanian seacoast, Mauritania, North Africa, Mauritania, land of the Moors. In ancient times, that included Jews, Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Moabites, Amorites, I can't even pronounce that, Idumeans and Philistines, right? Fierce and warlike people with a remarkable genius for religion, which has greatly influenced the modern world. The prophet said that our ancestors were the creators of civilization. Remember, he's talking to those people, those images from the 1920s, the so-called Black people, saying that you descend from the creators of civilization. Okay, so the Phoenicians, no Phoenician artifact should be found here, given the mainstream version of history. And this stuff is suppressed, but it's real. So what you're seeing right up here, this is an inscription from an artifact called the Paraíba text. The Paraíba text was found in Brazil, and this is in the Phoenician script. And this is because at the time, that this thing was found, the Europeans would have, which in that area would have been the Portuguese, they hadn't fully translated the Phoenician script yet. So as the people that found it, like, and this isn't the only thing, the Paraiba text, this is one thing, but there were several coins and different things found with the Phoenician script on it. Okay, and this is important because the people who found it, many of them were Jesuit priests or whatever, they saw enough and they could understand enough to know that it was Phoenician, but they hadn't truly translated everything until much, much later, talking about in the 1900s, 1940s, 50s. And this is when they realized they weren't fake. No one could have faked it. That one that was just showing, though, the Paraiba text, it says, "We are children of Canaan from Sidon, from the eastern kingdom of merchants, and our caste." And then it says, it says a little bit more from that. There's another one too. This has King Messa's inscription from Moab, and this was found here in the Americas, in South America. Let me go to. There's another book I want to share with you. It's called The Mysteries of Ancient America. Let me pull that up, and it's got a little bit more about that Phoenician script being found here, and just things in general that shouldn't be found here. Okay, and the Prophet Noble Drew Ali reconnected us to those people. Okay, so you had a stone covered with Phoenician letters discovered in Brazil 120 years ago. Inscription found by Brazilian slaves. And anytime you see a Negro, it's a slave. Brazil has far more so-called Black people than we do here in North America. So this Paraiba text gives it recounts the voyage of Phoenician merchants who traveled from Sidon in the 6th century BC. And they tried to call it a fraud because this type of stuff's not supposed to be found here. It doesn't fit in with the main stream version of history. But later research found that the script was authentic, right? The passages that were thought to be erroneous have been verified from identical inscriptions of bona fide Phoenician artifacts. Not only that, but they didn't understand all of that stuff. So it was found in the early 1800s. You had Cyrus Gordon, a Semitic language scholar at Brandeis University, who ruled out the possibility of forgery because the archaic language was only recently decoded. In 1641, Jesuits living near Minas Gerais, Brazil, reported bronze figurines with strange writing. They didn't know what it was. Later on, antiquarians at the Vatican identified the inscriptions as Phoenician. This is all being covered up. Nobody knows this. 1754, missionaries reported the ruins of a stone city in the Amazon jungle having Phoenician inscriptions. Okay, so the Phoenicians, clearly there's something going on. Why are these things being found in Brazil? Also, you have the Wabansi sculpture found in Chicago, and this is another thing that people who are looking at it saying this looks similar to Phoenician artifacts, and this was found in Chicago, and it's being covered up so badly. Hang on one second, let me pardon. So that anytime things like this are being found, it's automatically being branded as fake, fraud, or just a mistake that people don't know what they're looking at. Okay, so there's a script that's being told to people. You have to cover this up, especially people who are historians who are writing books. You won't get any work if you talk about this. This is the Wabansi structure. It's now tucked away in a Chicago museum. For several years, it was being used just as a water fountain. But this thing was found by some early European explorers of the area, and it's got inscriptions on it, as well as other signifiers that show that it's got some ties to the people across the Atlantic. There's also, you have the bow stone. Okay, this was found in North America. It's got Iberian Punic on it. Okay, if you just see the description of it, it's a small rectangular stone. There's actually a chamber at this place they call Mystery Hill that has several artifacts like this, and the inscription reads from right to left, to bow of the Canaanites, in parentheses Phoenicians. This is in dedication. Okay, so you had the Canaanite gods of Baal and El, Bay and El. Then you have more. You also have the Born Stone. I believe this was found in Connecticut. All right, it's a Carthaginian artifact, and not only that, it's signed by Hannibal Bay. It's signed Hannibal, and it says, "By this I take claim." So it's actually a record of annexation, right, of the Americas by the Phoenicians, the Carthaginians, in other words, the Moors. This is one of the earliest Phoenician documents pertaining to our rights and possessions over here. Not saying it's the only one. This is just one that's come out, and yeah, that's found in, I can't even pronounce that word, but Cape Cod Bay, New England, Massachusetts. And it says, "By this I take claim," signed Hannibal Bay in the Phoenician script. All right. And you cannot move a landmarker that denotes the annexation of the landmark between territories. Right. So this is something that's old. As this description says, it dates back to the year 250 BC. This is a legal document for indigenous Moors here. It's proof that we've been here. But that's not the only one. It's not the only one. And this is known, I would have to get you the name for this book, but just reading this real briefly, pure-blooded Atlantean people is unlikely, right? I'm so sorry. Let me go down here to what is speaking about the Berbers of North Africa. Now, if you remember earlier reading the Negro Act, and it says it's speaking about this law, this act pertaining to Negroes being confined to slavery, where we descend from enslaved Africans, and in parentheses, it calls us Berbers. Okay, it denotes that we're Berbers, but it's removing our connection to that by saying that we come from slaves. All right. And this was known that the mighty Carthaginians at the present time just may be the Berbers of North Africa. Okay. And this area of North Africa is very important. This is also why we don't want to remove ourselves from this connection to this land. When I was reading chapter 47, the prophet Noble Drew Ali came to our people and said that we received permission from the pharaohs to come over here. And that we did it before the great earthquake, which caused the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, so you have some stuff going on in North Africa, in Mauritania, the Atlas Mountains. Okay, but we'll get to that, right? So there's a reason why you may see stuff like this online, where you see people who claim to be Moors saying that this is Morocco, America is Egypt. There's a reason for that. We're going to explain that. Also, we'll get you the source for this as well. But this right here is explaining the actual understanding of where the name America came from. They taught us in school that it was named after Amerigo Vespucci. However, there are several scholars who dispute that. Some professors who definitely dispute that this guy, maybe took on that name afterwards, but definitely that this was not something that was named after him, because he didn't even really do that much. All right. So just reading this in brief, strange to say, the presiding officer decided in favor of the latter. But even though the theory rejected at this Congress has not much historical support, we may confidently look to the Incas for a better one, talking about where this name America came from. America was spelled variously in the first maps and documents as Amaraca, Americo, Amerioca, Maraca, Moraca, as well as America. From Humboldt, we learned that the first settlement of Spaniards on the mainland was at Amaraca Pana. The native word Pana was, according to Sir Walter Raleigh, the equivalent of country. Amaraca Pana. So some of these names even sound like Morocco. Yeah. Right, Moraca, Al-Morocca. This is why you'll see Moors saying this, making these claims that this is the Al-Moroccan Empire. This name was here pre-colonial conquest. Okay, and so you had the indigenous people here who were classified as Blackamoors, described as Blackamoors, and that may be surprising news for a lot of our people to hear. But it doesn't matter what you believe, whether you believe that all of our people were brought over on slave ships from Africa. It doesn't matter what you think, no matter how you cut it, we're still Moors. This map is showing Muhammadan Africa. And if you look at it, you'll see the Moroccan Empire over here, right? It's not just where present day Morocco is, right? Everything in yellow, for the most part, was considered part of the Moroccan Empire. And so much of West Africa, which is where they always put us at, we're sub-Saharan African, that's where we descend from, and West Africa, just somewhere in West Africa. Okay, so all of that, Senegal, all of these places were at one point a part of the Moroccan Empire. Okay, even the people of Ghana, actually, many of them have stories of their lineage, of their people coming to that land from Mauritania, which was up here on the northwestern coast. All right, so I'm just saying this to say, and I'm not discounting the transatlantic slave trade either, because some people were brought over through the slave trade. Many of them found their way in Brazil. Okay, and I've seen the slave chambers where they were keeping people in Brazil, but I also met people in Brazil. Like my wife and I met this lady who was a teacher in Brazil, a dark-skinned lady with dreadlocks, who was telling us that she's indigenous to the land, or people were there before the Portuguese came. And in the school books there, like some of our children's school books while we lived there, it described the Indians as Negros de Terra. Okay, and that was the old description, Negros de Terra. Okay, so you had indigenous people here who were Moors, but then also the people who came through the slave trade were Moors as well. So it doesn't matter how you cut it. You're talking about Moors. And just getting back to the indigenous descriptions, these are some newspaper articles. I have the years on those too. I might be able to get that to you later, but I'm thinking these are from the 1800s. This one says, "But Thady, are you not afraid of the Blackamoor wild Indians that live in the woods? They will come down some night and tomahawk you." Okay, that's just one description speaking about the Blackamoor Indians. This one saying a Virginia paper says, in commenting on the decision of the Supreme Court in the Dred Scott case, the highest judicial tribunal in the land has decided that the Blackamoors, called by the extreme of public courtesy the colored population, are not citizens of the United States. This decision must be followed by other decisions in the individual states themselves. Negro suffrage must, of course, be abolished everywhere. Okay, and this Dred Scott case, where Dred Scott was suing for his freedom, right? Because the owner had died, or his slave owner had died. In that case, it was ruled that, I think the ruling got overturned later on, but it was ruled that he was a Negro. He didn't have any rights. Okay. And this is speaking on that same case, talking about those same people, but referring to them as Blackamoors. Okay. And this was in a newspaper. There's another clip too. And it's just, once again, speaking about indigenous people. Says some Irish neighbors helped him to get up a cabin to shelter the family. And he says to one, "Where do them Blackamoor Negor Indians live that I heard about in our country?" Right? Obey Aunt, they're in the woods, right? So this is a story from an older newspaper. And it's once again just speaking about the indigenous people, calling them Blackamoors. This is stuff that was known, even though we don't know this today. Okay. And there's several examples, but just getting to another example, William Penn, who is the founder of Pennsylvania, when he was speaking about the Delaware Indians, the first natives he encountered, right, in a letter to the Committee of Free Society Traders, 1683. "The natives I consider in their person, language, manners, religion, and government with my sense of their original. Describing them, they're generally tall, straight, well-built, and singular proportion, tread strong and clever, mostly walk with a lofty chin, of complexion, black, but by design as the gypsies in England." Right? Why would he say that? And then just skipping down, their skins must needs be swarthy, speaking about dark skin. Why would he say of complexion black, but by design as the gypsies in England? The gypsies in England at that time were people of Moorish descent. Even that nickname, Gypsy, Egyptian, right? That was the tag that was put on them. And these were the people who may have lightened up over time, right? But these were the remnants of the Moors. The Moors ruled Europe from 711 to around 1491. 1491 is when it officially, the last stronghold fell, but that's nearly 800 years. And so Moors were all over Europe. They ruled from Spain, the stronghold of the empire, but they were all over Europe. Okay. And so he's saying, well, the Indians, they look just like our Indians, right? Just like the gypsies over here, the Moors. Okay, this statue that you see, I believe this is a Powhatan who is a chief or a king from Virginia. Okay, but this type of statue you see, okay, he's dark skinned, he's got obvious features of the so-called Black people. All right, but these types of statues you actually see like all over Europe, even throughout the early Americas. They'll have these statues anytime they're selling tobacco. We were like tagged with tobacco, right? Because that was one of the main crops. Okay. And they would have a Blackamoor Indian. Okay, and then the same way he's depicted with this feather headdress and this feather thing around his waist. This is the same way they depicted Negroes as well. As you can see this old image down here showing Negroes probably being sold into slavery. They had that same feather headdress and feather waistband thing. Okay, this is how the indigenous were depicted as well. Also in the book Ancient and Modern Britons by David McRitchie, who is a man of European descent. He's using that same type of description of that William Penn used, right? The Englishmen who had colonized the western shores of the Atlantic not more than a generation or two before Gross spoke of the Indians there as being as black as gypsies. All right, so when they say gypsies, they're speaking about Moors in Europe. In 1676, the native races of New England were spoken of indifferently as Indians and Moors, and our British Indians are also remembered as Moors. Therefore, Gross is virtually telling us that large companies of Moors or Black people roamed up and down the country rather more than 100 years ago, taking very considerable contributions from the farming classes and others being possessed by many fierce and aggressive qualities. So he's speaking about the Moors in Europe being just like the ones over here, the natives, the so-called Indians, okay? And that's in Ancient and Modern Britons. I think that's on page 374. Okay, so Indian was the tag put on the people. They were called Indians or Moors, and eventually Moors was replaced by Indian. All right, that's why we see some of those articles calling the Indians Blackamoor Indians. Okay, so you'll see that in the Middle Ages in the 17th century, Moors were supposed to be Black, and the word was used as a generic name for all dark-skinned races. It's the equivalent to Negro or Blackamoor. In 1621, the word Indian was substituted for Moorish. Okay, and that's this is from the Peabody Museum of American Archaeology and Ethnology from 1888, Harvard University, Volume 1, I believe. All right. And I want to speak on how the Indian got in this position, how he was enslaved. So as I was saying earlier, with that Negro law, South Carolina, right, it lets you know that that color, that skin tone became the way of determining who's an enslaved Negro, who's a Negro that descends from enslaved Africans. But that same color could not be the determination for you being an Indian, a so-called indigenous person. Even though in their own dictionaries, they describe the Americans as the copper skin tone people. So this was something, it didn't happen overnight, but this was occurring over time. Virginia passed 2 acts in 1682 that combined Native Americans and Africans into one category, Negroes and other slaves. All right. And then in more modern Virginia history, the census director in Virginia, Walter Plecker, right, developer of the Negro and American Indian classification, declared all Indians were of African heritage, and then he helped to initiate the Racial Integrity Act, right? They were literally like, well, your hair is too curly. You don't have good hair. Doing this to people and saying, okay, you classified as Black. And so this was occurring, and they were wiping out the Indian populations of entire states, right? This is happening state by state. And this is how the Indians disappeared. And this is very real. I mean, you can look through history. There's a case with Abraham Lincoln representing a William Dungy. William Dungy today would be classified as Black. Okay. And he came into an inheritance. I think he may have inherited a house. I can't remember all the details, but he came into an inheritance and he had some relatives who would be classified as white today. All right. And they knew that Negroes couldn't own property. So they made the public assertions that he was a Negro, specifically one, Joseph Spencer. He's like, he's a Negro. And that was not just like an insult or something. No, that's to make sure that he doesn't get this property. Maybe Joseph knew that he could get it, you know, or he wanted to take it. So he argued that William Dungy was a Negro, and William Dungy sued him. And Abraham Lincoln was his trial lawyer. And he argued, he said, my client is not a Negro, though it is not a crime to be a Negro, no crime to be born with black skin. But my client is not a Negro. His skin may not be as white as ours, but I say he is not a Negro, though he may be a Moor. All right. And then he interrupted Judge Davis, who's starting to smile. You mean a Moor? And he's pointing to C.H. Moore, who has the last name Moore. And Lincoln says, no, you know, he clarifies that. He's like, no, he's like, I say my client may be a Moor, but he is not a Negro. And he won the case. He won the judgment for William Dungy by arguing that he wasn't a Negro, he was a Moor. Okay. And so these are the things that are hidden in history. They're there, but we don't know what we're looking at. In 1730, you have Philip Moore III sold a parcel of land in Hartford, Connecticut to Captain Thomas Seymour. Nothing about the transaction was unusual, except that Philip was a man of African descent, whose father and grandfather before him owned that land. He sold it. How could somebody in 1730 who's so-called Negro be a third generation on the record landowner? This means that would be going back into the 1600s, right? 1730, he sold it, and his father and grandfather also owned the land. Yes. And his last name was Moore. Okay, so this is something that's, once again, is there. We just don't know how to look at it. You also had the first person who was killed in the American Revolution was somebody named Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks was a free black man. Okay, and Attucks, that last name that's an unusual last name. Attucks is I believe it's an Algonquin word, and I think it means deer. But that was his last name. Oh no, it's a Wampanoag word. Crispus Attucks was a Wampanoag Indian. That's what a lot of people don't know. He knew that because we're talking about early 1700s, right? So he was of Wampanoag descent, but he was classified as what? A Negro. Even though he knew who he was, right? And he's got this Indian name, Crispus Attucks, he's still classified as a Negro. And of course, he was the first person to die in a Revolutionary War. But these things are hidden in our face, right? They who knows what the explanation would be given for him being a free so-called black man at that time. But you have to know who you are in order to properly assess this information that we're seeing. Okay, so you also had another example. This act was passed in Massachusetts on the 6th of March 1788, forbidding any Negro not a subject of the Emperor of Morocco or a citizen of the United States from tarrying in the Commonwealth. So once again, we have this distinction being made. Now in 1790, there was an act that was called the Free Sundry Moors Act. You had a group of people who would be classified as black today who petitioned the court to be classified as Moors, emperors of the subject of Morocco. If anything happened, if they're accused of any crime, or if somebody says they're a Negro so they can't own land, Negroes couldn't own land, couldn't own guns or anything. If that happened, they would be classified as Moors. All right. And so this Sundry Free Moor Act was passed. And if you look at their names, none of them had Arabic names, right? They all had the same type of names that we have to this day. okay? And they were people who would be classified as Black, okay? So they weren't actually saying that they came from Morocco over there. They just knew something. The way that the tribes and the people were classified, this is once again something that's been hidden in our face the whole time. You see this map up here, it says distribution of the barbarous tribes. Now, a lot of times we hear that name, barbarian, barbarous. We're thinking, you know, that's an insult. And it was turned into an insult by Europeans as they started to kick the Moors out and started to have the expulsion of all the Moors from Europe and start to go to war with Moors. It was turned into an insult, right? But barbarian or barbarous actually ties in to the word Berber, the Berber people, the Moors of North Africa. So you actually had this tag being, or this description being put on the barbarous tribes east of the Mississippi. Okay, and this map is actually showing people. Now, if you look at the southeastern United States, our people still, there's still a large amount of our people that live in that portion of North America to this day. But this was the distribution of the barbarous tribes east of the Mississippi. And this is an old map, I believe. Well, it says circa 1491, but I believe this map is like over 100 years old, maybe even a little more than that. Okay, what you're looking at right now, this is a federal race classification. So what many people don't understand is when you look at the census, when you look at the classifications they have for all these ethnic groups, they actually have racial hierarchical codes. And so there's a racial hierarchical code for Moors. And when you look it up, Moors are classified as the indigenous Indians, the same type of Indians you see on this map, the Eastern Woodland Indians, okay? They're all classified as Moors. And once again, this is something that we don't know, but it's been there this whole time. And people can go and look this up themselves. It's true. So this is known, as you were saying, do some lawyers and judges know? Now, there are some people who know this. They can't tell you, all right, but it's known. So once again, it doesn't matter if we're looking at the people who were here before European conquest or the people who came via the slave trade. We're still talking about Moors. And when you look at the slave trade wasn't just bringing people from Africa. It was also getting people in the Bahamas and bringing them to South Carolina and causing confusion, sending those children off to another area, separating the elders so they can't pass down the language, and branding them as Negroes everywhere they went. Okay. And so when the Prophet Noble Drew Ali reconnected us to the ancient Moabites, the Canaanites, these are the people he's talking about. These are things that were built in that area, which back then would have been called Canaan. Things that are built out of solid stone, right? Ancient civilizations. And we don't want to discount ourselves from that. Okay. So I want to go back into this though, just speaking about the Canaanites. It's known, and I guess you could say in secret circles, that these people, the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, they are tied in to not only to ancient Egypt, but they're also tied into ancient America. All right. And this is why we would see those types of artifacts found here. So there's migrations that took place over time where the people from Canaan, from that land, moved throughout North Africa and even made their way into the place called Mauritania, the Atlas Mountains, right? This example that's up here is just saying that people who migrated across the Mediterranean into Spain from North Africa were known as Moors, right? They came from the Moroccan cities such as Marrakesh and Mauritania, all right? And this is located beneath the Atlas Mountains, right? Which is west of Egypt. And this is important for us to understand. It's going to make sense in just a few minutes, right? But looking at Atlas, okay, the Atlas Mountains. Now, the Atlas Mountains are in Northwest Africa, in that area where Mauritania is today. When you look at the word Atlas, now Atlas, I guess you could say mythology. I don't consider it mythology, but when you're looking at the story of ancient Atlantis, right, as told to us by people like Plato. Plato learned this story from the ancient Egyptians. He was sitting at their feet and learning about history. And they're telling him about a land that wound up sinking beneath the sea. Now, Atlas had a king, King Poseidon. Poseidon had 7 sons. Atlas, I believe, was the oldest son, and he had the large, Poseidon split the kingdom up into 7 portions. I believe Atlas had the largest portion. He was the oldest son. Now, also in Greek mythology, Titan, condemned to hold up the celestial heavens for eternity, right? He stood at the ends of the earth in the extreme west, which at that time was Mauritania, the furthest west, the extreme west. He became commonly identified with the Atlas Mountains in Northwest Africa and was said to be king of Mauritania. We don't know this. We're not being told this, right? You have the Atlantic Ocean, right? The sea, that means the Sea of Atlas. Of course, Atlantis means the island of Atlantis. And he was one of the kings of Atlantis, the king of Mauritania. Okay, we're not being taught this, but this has been passed down literally for thousands of years. So when Plato's story is automatically tagged as mythology, oh, don't worry about that. There was no Atlantis. You're crazy even to mention that, right? But he learned this from an older civilization, Egypt, which could literally trace themselves back thousands of years. Okay, so King Atlas, this is why you have those Atlas Mountains, because he was king of Mauritania. So that land, that area took on his name. Okay, and so the Mauritanians, right, this is tied into us again because Mauritania, that means the land of the Moors, right? Just looking at this description here is speaking about ancient Atlantis, right? Which I know that might sound like just mythology to a lot of people, but we have real landmarks, real stories, which I'm going to show you, which have been passed down and even written history from the ancient people who witnessed some of these things that have been classed as mythology, right? So you have the children of Atlas, right? The king of the Atlantic Isle, all right? And he was the king of Mauritania. Okay, and this is important because the description of Atlantis, at least the capital of Atlantis, I won't say just Atlantis as a whole, because Atlantis, just like Egypt, was a worldwide civilization. Okay, it wasn't just, this is why you could say Egypt was over here in the Americas, but you wouldn't want to say that Egypt over there didn't exist either. Right? It was a worldwide civilization. So if you're looking at Atlantis, this image that you see up on the screen, this is an artist's depiction of how Atlantis was described to Plato by the Egyptians. You had an island that was surrounded by circle islands, and they're each separated by a body of water going out to the outside. Okay? And this is important for reasons that, like I'm saying with that puzzle, it's been hidden in our face the whole time. Okay. And I'm not going to come up here and just say Atlantis was in America. Of course it was, but we're talking about a worldwide civilization. So what you're seeing up here on the left-hand side, you've got an artist's depiction of how Atlantis was described. But then on the right, you've got this thing that's called the Recot structure. Recot structure. It's also called the Eye of the Sahara. Take a guess where it's at.
America?
No. It's I'll give you a hint. It's in the area we've been talking about. It's in North Africa. So guess where it's at. It's in Mauritania. All right. The same place where you've got the Atlas Mountains. You've got this huge structure. It's humongous, and it's just these huge raised levels of land with like a circle island type structure in the middle. Now, of course, it's not separated by water anymore. Why? Because that area is the desert now. It's the Western Sahara. That same place that Trump was now recognizing the sovereignty of Morocco over, claiming that area of Western Sahara. Okay, so this Recot structure is found in Mauritania, and it looks just like this oral tradition of what the capital of Atlantis looked like. All right. And it still exists to this day. Okay. And this is important, and it ties into us over here. So what you're seeing on the screen right now this owl vase was found here in the Yucatan, and it has a Phoenician script. It's written in the Phoenician script, and in the Phoenician script, it says, "From King Kronos of Atlantis." And this is found here in the Yucatan. All right. There's no reason. This was transcribed, I believe, from the same person who was speaking about earlier, Augustus Plongeon. So it says, "From King Kronos of Atlantis" in the Phoenician script in the Yucatan. There's no reason for these type of artifacts to be found over here, given the traditional history that we're told. It's not the only one. There are several Central American vases that had Phoenician characters on them, and the script and everything lines up with authentic Phoenician artifacts that have been found too. So they know that this wasn't like a forgery that was done later on. Okay, so these are things, and it's known. I mean, that Wikipedia link, this here, if you go look up Priam, Priam treasure, you can find out more information about this, but there's no other reason for these types of artifacts to be found over here in Mexico, but I'll tell you why. All right, so just going back to that description we got from the Holy Koran, this person from North Carolina telling us about the so-called Black people, where they come from, right? The true and divine name of Africa. The first true and divine name is a Mexam. And then you have the Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit Northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire. Okay, and then we're getting that description again. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from Northeast and Southwest Africa across the Great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands before that great earthquake which caused the Atlantic Ocean. Now, Egypt was a worldwide culture, and from the book Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, he speaks about the Moors being the caretakers of the wisdom from ancient Egypt. Right, just here, it would be well to mention that all the great leaders of the great religions of antiquity were initiates of the Egyptian mystery system, from Moses, who was an Egyptian hieroglyphic, down to Christ. I didn't mean to read that, but he also mentions the Moors being the caretakers, all right, of the Egyptian culture, which you can see here. The Moors, i.e. natives of Mauritania in North Africa, invaded Spain and took with them the Egyptian culture, which they had preserved. They had preserved it. They became the custodians of Egyptian culture, which they spread through considerable portions of Africa, Asia Minor, and Europe. George G.M. James was a professor. He wrote this amazing book. I advise everybody to get that, Stolen Legacy. We spoke about this previously. This is why you'll see artifacts like this found here. This sculpture that looks like a pyramid was found in Ecuador. Okay, and it's a 13-step pyramid with the Eye of Providence at the top. It looks just like the one on the US dollar. So once again, with that being on that $1 bill, that's our seal. So somebody knows this. Somebody knows this, and it's not shocking to them to find these artifacts here, which show that this was part of our dominion. And on the bottom of that same pyramid, you have a script that's been found here, which has actually been found on artifacts all over the planet. All right. And you actually had someone who was able to transcribe and understand that script. And he was a scholar from Mauritania. And he basically was a scholar of his own people's history. Okay, so that's why I yield the floor, sister.
One question. The pyramid on the dollar, I noticed that the top part of it is separate from the other part.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that?
I'm just going to take a guess at it
and
say that that eye is representing the all-seeing eye, which we all have within us. Even if we all have a third eye or a pineal gland. And when you separate that, or you separate that capstone from the body, right, we're not able to connect with God within.
Wow. Wow.
And that's why when you look at the pyramids, like in the Great Pyramid in Egypt, it had a capstone. Actually, the capstone that used to be on it, I believe, was solid gold, and it was removed. So this is being done. It's like taking the head off of an entire people, right? And the spell has been cast.
Okay. Thank
so
you.
we don't even realize what's been going on. And this is why I was saying, like, this isn't just a Black problem. This affects us all. It's holding everybody back, right? We have to return to our true state, or it's just gonna keep continuing like it is now, whereas everything in society is going down. And just going back to that, I know I keep talking about that verse from the Holy Koran, but this man from North Carolina in the 1920s let us know that the dominion and inhabitation extended from Africa across the Great Atlantis into North, South, Central America before the Great Earthquake, which caused the Atlantic Ocean. Now, there's something called the Toronto Manuscript, and it describes the Great Earthquake that caused the Atlantic Ocean. I'm gonna go to a book from got a book from Augustus Le Plongeon, same person we were speaking about earlier, and he's reading from the Toronto Manuscript. Now, the Toronto Manuscript is a book that was smuggled out of Mexico. And the reason they had to get smuggled out is because when the Spaniards were coming in, they were burning the books. And if they didn't burn it, they were sending it straight to the Vatican so that it could be locked up in vaults. And so there were books over here. There were universities over here. But we're being told that people were all, uncivilized. Okay. And so looking at the Toronto Manuscript, okay, this description of it, saying that this interesting work has a minute description of various phenomenon attending the disaster. What is the disaster? He has pictures of the plates from it because it's basically hieroglyphs, and it had to be deciphered. It took time to actually understand what's being depicted. So going back to this, it gives you the story of a tragedy. The year 6 Khan, on the 11th Muluk, in the month Zak, there occurred terrible earthquakes, which continued without intermission until the 13th Chuan. The country of the hills of mud, the land of Mu, was sacrificed. Being twice upheaved, it suddenly disappeared during the night, the basin being continually shaken by volcanic forces. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but in the Toronto, they're referring to their land, which this would have been in the Yucatan. This would have been in present-day Mexico and Belize. They were calling their land the land of Mu. And they're describing earthquakes. So this goes on for a while. They're describing earthquakes. They're describing lands sinking beneath the sea and some lands rising above the sea, being separated from their people and many of their people perishing. Okay. And they're describing this occurring for a long time continuously, right? Fire, volcanoes. All right. And they wrote this down. They wrote it down and preserved it. And these were the things that were being destroyed or hidden away from us so that we wouldn't even know about it. They spoke also about a great deluge, a great flood, the greatest deluge which had occurred within the memory of man. And these people that wrote it, these are the people they would call the Maya or the Olmec people. Okay, so this was actually written down. And the Spanish were destroying all of these things. When they, came upon it, either it was being destroyed or it was being locked up out of our view forever. Okay. And so that one was actually smuggled out and over to Europe. And I believe the Toronto Manuscript today is in a museum in, I believe it's in a museum that is in England right now. So this is a very real thing. And it's a, a physical artifact.
Wow.
Speaking about this thing, and it didn't happen millions of years ago, thousands of years ago. Okay, and so remember too, we had that picture of the old man wearing a fez, and that was an artifact that was found in Mexico. So here's something else I want to share too, of the indigenous people. Once again, also speaking about something that lines up with chapter 47 in the Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and that's the indigenous people describing themselves coming here from Atlantis.
Wow.
So let me show you that just briefly. And for people that want to look this up on their own, there's a great book by Peter Tompkins. It's called Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids. Okay, and okay, here we go. Through all the omens, though all the omens had foretold their coming. No, oh, hang on. Sorry.
I'll take your time.
Okay. All right. Okay, here we go. So well, first, before I describe this, the description of the Spaniards when they first glimpsed the island capital of Tenochtitlan. Tenochtitlan was built like floating islands, and this was in Mexico. So they're saying that it was amazing. It was like Venice. It had stunning palaces, temples, and pyramids, stucco pink with volcanic ash, right? They had running water. It was amazing. It was more amazing than anything they had ever seen in Europe. Though many had seen the splendors of Rome and Constantinople, they were amazed at a city of 300,000 inhabitants, right? Freshwater aqueducts laced with canals, paved streets, as big as Salamanca. They had a huge marketplace where 70,000 Indians came to trade. They had exotic birds and all these things, and they described their leader Montezuma as a Moor. Okay, but just going back to them describing where they came from. Okay, according to Aztec tradition, the city of Tenochtitlan was modeled after the lost capital of their original homeland, situated on an island in the middle of a lake, surrounded by rings of canals and interconnecting dams. They called themselves Aztec after their mythical home in Aztlan. Mythical. Aztlan. Okay. And they described their homeland. So you have that reference now to Atlantis. Remember Poseidon, he established that island with rings of land, each separated by water, circles within a circle. And then we've got that recot structure, the Eye of the Sahara in Mauritania. Okay, so the Aztec people describe themselves coming from Atlas and coming from this land that's fits the same description of Atlantis. And that's another thing it's been there. We just don't know what we're looking at, right? Even if we read something like that, in the history, you wouldn't know what you're looking at unless you know your true history, okay? Or how this connects to us, the so-called Negroes. So once again, just going back to Trump, this is why he was telling us he couldn't come out and say it. We have a prophet, right? We need to listen to our prophet, but he couldn't come out and say this to us, but he told us without saying it, without breaking code. He said, African Americans have to understand their history. And when he's saying, or you will go back to it again, he's talking about the suffering, like the things that we're still going through to this day. You have to understand who you are. And then once again, he recognized that the sovereignty of Morocco over Western Sahara, which would be extending out to Mauritania or the farthest west, which some would say the Maghreb al-Aska, which is the farthest west of the Maghreb, which would be Morocco. Some would say the Maghreb al-Aska is North America. Alaska means the furthest west. We have a huge state called Alaska.
Right. Yeah.
The Maghreb Alaska. So he recognized their sovereignty over the furthest west. It's being told, but nobody's going to come out and say this. I'm going back to William Penn. Remember, William Penn described the people as being as black as the gypsies in England. Their skin must needs be swarthy. Well, William Penn has an interesting story. He was the founder of Pennsylvania. He came in here and he had agreements with the Delaware people, the Lenape people, to be able to settle in that land. They can have this land for them. You can worship as you want, right? This is what the indigenous people agreed to. And what many people don't know is that William Penn learned many of the indigenous languages, and one of the leaders that he met was a man named Tammany, Chief Tammany or Tammany, right? He's a king, Chief Tammany. Chief Tammany actually gave William Penn a nickname. They called him Mequon. There's a story about how he's trying to tell them his last name in their language is Penn, and so he pulls up a quill or a feather, and when they see the feather, they're like, "Oh, Mequon," right? Because that's what they use for a pen. Dip it in the ink, right? The indigenous people weren't all uncivilized like they tell us, so they call him Mequon. But when they gave him that nickname, they're adopting him into their culture. And like, okay, you can have this portion of our empire. All right, so Chief Tammany did that. And Chief Tammany is honored to this day. If you go to Philadelphia, and we'll speak about Philadelphia, this is important. This is also where William Penn met, in Philadelphia. So Chief Tammany, the king, King Tammany, is honored to this day. There's a huge, immaculate statue. It's like 70 feet tall or something in Philadelphia. I've seen it. And this is it, where you see Chief Tammany, and he's got the eagle or the hawk on his shoulder. Okay. And it looks like he's got some type of thing on his head. We'll look at that. But Chief Tammany is honored to this day. There's a place in New York called Tammany Hall. Tammany Hall was turned into a place where European immigrants could come into the country and they could learn how this government works, learn how to participate in government, how the representatives work. They could come in and learn how to be Americans and how to empower themselves. And it was called Tammany Hall. So the people coming in from Ireland and all of these places, they all went into Tammany Hall and learned how to how to take part in the politics here. Okay. And so this is something he's seen as the patron saint of North America, right? He was the chief. He was a Sagamore of the Lenape people, that the Delaware Indians. The Delaware Indians are known to this day as the Delaware Moors. Anyone that wants to can look that up on Google. You just look that up. So if you go though to Tammany Hall in New York, you'll see on the inside it has an Islamic dome at the top of the building, and they have this thing that's called the Liberty Cap. Right now, I can't zoom in on this, but if you look down here on the right, you'll see the Liberty Cap, and the Liberty Cap is a tarbouche. It's a fez. It's a red headdress that has a tassel. The Liberty Cap. So they're honoring him. They're putting that in there. It's in your face, but once again, we don't know what we see. Right? Somebody could just come up to us and say, "Oh, that's not a fez," and we'll accept that. But in reality, it's right there. It's in our face. Okay, and going back to Tammany and William Penn, they signed this treaty. This is an old painting from the 1800s, but it's depicting the Treaty of Penn with the Indians in 1771. This is before the independence of America was claimed, right? So this treaty between William Penn and the delegation from the Native American tribes, and they signed this, but guess where they signed it? The place where they signed it is considered, I guess, modern day Philadelphia, but back then that place was called Sheik Lloyd. Sheik Lloyd. Now remember that Prophet Noble Drew Ali told us the true and divine name of Africa is a Mexim. Okay, Sheik Lloyd was the place where the chiefs were crowned. The sheiks were crowned. Chief and sheik means the same thing. So within this nation that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali created for us, we have sheiks, we have chiefs. All right. So in this place called Sheik Lloyd, which is Philadelphia, right? This is the site of the treaty being signed. The reason they did that here, and you can look this stuff up too on Wikipedia. The reason they did that in Sheik Lloyd is because that's where the Lenape crowned their family Sakima, their family Sagamore. That was another name they had for chiefs. All right, they crowned their chiefs at Sheik Lloyd. Sheik Lloyd was the capital. All right, and so other people have interpreted Sheik Lloyd to mean the place of eels, and they say the place of eels referring to the fish, the eels, the gillless fish that live in the waters, I guess there. But within our society, we have eels and bays. A lot of people pronounce the last name El as eel, right? So in Sheik Lloyd, this was the meeting place of the eels. This was the place where they crowned their chiefs. All right. And so this is very real. And like I said, this is something that's been hidden in our face the whole time. We just didn't know what we were looking at. Sheik Lloyd signifies the place of eels. All right. The place where kings are crowned, chiefs are crowned. Wow. All right. Sheiks of Amexem. So this painting, I was at the George Washington Masonic Museum in Washington, D.C. with my wife. And she's like, hey, you see anything about that? And I looked at it and it's like, wow, okay, there's things here that you may not notice. Now, just looking at this image, you can see everybody's here. And what are they doing? This is the inauguration of George Washington, right? The first president of the United States of America. So there's all these people here to witness it. You even have an indigenous couple down here, or family with a baby down here in this boat, and everyone's looking. They're not really looking at George Washington, though. They're all looking up here. Okay, and so what we see up here is, and I hopefully everyone can see this, they're all looking at this sign that says welcome, and you've got the United States of America flag, the bars and stripes, but then over here you've got this red flag that has a white box with the pine cone. Okay, so he's being welcomed into something. And this, in this image, you can't really see, but that's the Liberty cap. I saw the actual painting, it's red. There's the Liberty cap right there, which once again is the fez. Okay, so let's get into that. Why is that? What is going on here? And I want to say something real quickly about this too. Well, I'll come back to that. So that flag, that red flag with the white box with the pine cone, they called that the flag of New England, even though New England didn't really have a flag. Okay, but it's an all red flag, and it's got that white box with the pine cone. Where did that come from? That pine cone in that white box, that's actually the Iroquois flag. So this is the indigenous flag. Even though you may have seen people claiming this is the flag of New England, no, this is the indigenous flag. All right, the red flag is the flag of Morocco, plain and simple. And then you've got that white pine cone on there because of the Iroquois people, the Iroquois Federation or the Iroquois Nation. All right. You also have some accounts. This is from the Battle of Bunker Hill, right? They flew that flag, right? There's one account where a British Marine says the colonists didn't have any flags he could see. And then there's a few accounts mentioning seeing a red flag with no further description. Now, in this painting, this is called Trumbull's painting. It's the death of General Warren at the Battle of Bunker Hill. All right, they're flying that same flag. You can't see it in this picture, sorry, but you could look that up and you'll see some of the pictures are discolored because that painting's real old, but he's flying that red flag with that pine cone, okay? The continental flag, all right? But you also have accounts of these early colonists flying that red flag as well, okay? So so that people know, I'm not just claiming, oh, that pine cone was indigenous. No, it was. Now, even though the colonists adopted it, right? If you look at the actual symbolism, the pine tree symbolism, it has been symbolic in New England since the late 16th century, predating the arrival of colonists. After warring for decades, leaders of 5 nations, the Seneca, Cayuga, Onaga, Oneida, and Mohawk, buried their weapons beneath the tree planted by the Iroquois Confederacy founder, the Great Peacemaker. Okay, the tree of peace. That's where that came from. All right, so this pine cone, the white background, that came from the indigenous people. So when you see that in the corner of the all red flag, this is just denoting that aspect of the Moorish Empire. The Great Peacemaker that was the Iroquois leader who helped them to broker peace, right? Once again, well, he was a leader of the Iroquois Confederacy, but when you look at the Iroquois people, they had a law. There was not a law, they had a constitution. It was called the Great Law of Peace. Okay, the Constitution, their Great Law of Peace, this is what the US Constitution was based off of. And if you look at their flag, they have that pine cone in there too, that white pine cone. So this was all adopted from the indigenous people. All right. The United Iroquois nations are symbolized by an eastern white pine tree, the tree of peace. So the Constitution based off the Great Law of Peace. Then this was their flag. This is our flag. This is a Moorish flag. And the reason I'm sharing this is because when you understand this, this is just more description of some of the flags flown in the New England area, right? That pine tree, once again, a symbol that predates European colonial settlement, right? You had the Moors known as the Pennacock. The Algonquin word for Pennacock is children of the pine tree. All right. So this, once again, that's our symbol. Nobody's explaining it to us like that, but that's our symbol. And so just going back to that image of the inauguration, knowing this, truly understanding, you have that flag, which is an indigenous flag, and it's seen in this position from our perspective on the left. And then from our perspective, the U.S. right, Moorish of America, the U.S. flag in this position where the Moroccan flag is, and we fly the Moroccan flag where the U.S. flag is. Why? Because they're the ones that's in power. And I'm not saying they're like, we're not part of this country as well. I'm just saying that's what you do. You honor the nation that's in power. So if you look at it from that perspective, they were honoring the indigenous Moors, and they were being welcomed in. And so we're doing a reversal now. We're coming back into our own. They're in power. We're coming back into our own so that we can build up our nation unimpeded upon. We're not out here trying to say we're anti-government or anything like that. We're just building ourselves back up. We know who we are. And so in the past, it was the opposite, where we held the land. They were coming in and asking for a portion for themselves. And so that's why this welcome, you have the Liberty Cap, the fez, and then our flag flown in a superior position, and then theirs in the position, that's honoring that flag. It was the reverse of what we're doing now, right? We're coming back into our own. So this is what's occurring behind the scenes. And that's just in case anyone needs any more proof. There was a battle at Fort Negro. Fort Negro, I believe, was in Florida. Okay, and it was called Fort Negro, even though they were battling the indigenous people to take the land. They called it Fort Negro because the people there would have been classified as Black today. Okay, but guess what color flag they were flying? A solid red flag. And this is from history, right? People can look this up, but once again, nobody's going to explain to you why they flew a solid red flag. Why were they flying any flag, right? They act like the indigenous people didn't even know about anything, right? This is from the Yamasee Indians, and this is from a battle in the 1700s. Not only are they flying a red flag, but if you zoom in on this picture, there's a guy wearing a red turban. There's a guy over here, looks like he has a white fez on. And behind him, there's a guy that's got a turban, which looks like he has a feather in it. Wow. Okay. And they're battling Europeans, and they have the red flag. Okay. So these things have been hidden, and who's been hiding it? Right. And so I don't say this to down any other organizations or attack anyone, but we have to tell the truth. Some people cannot tell the truth. They cannot. They have to keep the secret. We have to reveal it.
You said
we have to be revealers of the light. Yes.
Excuse me. You said they cannot tell.
They cannot. There's some people that take oaths that prevent them from telling us who we are. Even if you are wearing, say you have your turban on, or I have my fez on, and we know who we are, we can have different conversations with these people who know the truth but can't speak on it. We can have a totally different conversation with them now because we're in the know, because we know that we're Moors.
Can you explain that fez right there? I see a sword.
Yes. So this man is more than likely a Shriner. Okay. All right. And the Shrine is an organization. I'm actually going to speak about this too a little bit later. But the Shrine is an organization where you, when you're a master Mason, you are able to, a master Freemason, you are able to become a Shriner, a member of the Noble Shrine. All right. And Shriners wear many things that have Moorish origin, which we'll get to. We'll explain exactly why they're doing this. Okay. And why the secret is being told or being kept. This what you see on the screen is a quote from a speech given by Henry Berry in the Virginia House of Delegates, 1832. He's describing the situation as it existed at that time in many parts of the South. And he's speaking to the Virginia House of Delegates, and he says, "We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter the slave's mind. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. They would then be on a level with the beast of the field, and we should be safe." Anyone can go look this up. This is from the Virginia House of Delegates in 1832, speaking about extinguishing the capacity to even see the light. And for people who are laymen, who don't understand the mystical terms he's speaking of when he's saying cutting off the light, right? That makes no sense. It just sounds racist, right? But when he's speaking about the light, the true knowledge of who we are, and then what to do with that understanding, right? This was cut off from us when we were branded Negroes. There's a quote from the prophet, Noble Drew Ali, it's called Drew Ali in Time, where he says in 1774, the light was cut off from the ancient Moors, and that is why Allah sent us a prophet in 1886 to prepare the light that was out. And then in 1925, the prophet said, "I've mended the broken wires and have connected them with higher powers. Come on, Asiatic, don't you want to go?" He's got some more quotes where he speaks about coming from darkness into light. But basically what he's speaking about is reconnecting us to who we are. Like, nobody's going to do that for us. He took the cover. This is a quote from him where he said, "I took the cover off of all the secret organizations." Okay. And so once again, this is not to knock any organizations or anything, right? It's like a game was being played. They could not reveal this to us. We have to rise on our own. This is a challenge for us. Everyone has challenges to deal with, and this is one of ours. So a lot of this stuff has been hidden in plain sight for the longest. If you look up in the left-hand corner, you see what looks like the Moroccan flag or the Moorish flag. And you have the Eye of Providence and these two pillars. This is on the ceiling of the Grand Lodge of England.
Wow.
And sure, people can explain all the mystical meanings behind it and why that's not the Moroccan flag, but come on, it's the Moroccan flag. It's hidden right there, right? And so even the symbolism from Masonry, where you have the burying of Hiram Abiff and the placing of him in the coffin. That coffin also has the flag, the Moroccan flag on it, right? This is symbolic for us as a people. Okay, all of this stuff has been hidden in our face. We just didn't know what we were truly looking at. This video is not playing, but it was just video of that flag that's at the top. It's the tapestry in the ceiling of the Grand Lodge of England, which is the oldest Freemasonic lodge in the world, if you don't consider ancient Egypt. But there were people in there discussing the mysticism of Freemasonry, and that thing was right there, right? But you could walk in there and not even know what you're looking at, because nobody's going to tell us. And so just going back to the statement where it's being spoken of potentially the real origin of the word America, right? America, Morocca, just come on, man. It's been hidden here the whole time. Now, going back to the Shriners organization, and I hope nobody takes this as like some type of attack, because it's not. We're just telling the truth. Everything that they do, the Shriners, they do good work. Like, they have the Shrine Hospital. They also have the Shriner Circus. They do these parades where they're driving around in little Corvettes. We don't even know that is all symbolic of the Moors. The Moors, well, as spoken of earlier, ruled Europe for nearly 800 years. They ruled the seas, literally. Everyone had to have some type of treaty with them, or their ships would get raided and stopped by Moorish pirates, or by Moors who were, sailing and patrolling the seas. They had these smaller boats that they called corvettes, right? And they would sail along the European ships to capture them, sometimes even selling them into slavery. And so this, when you understand that history, when you see, like, you may never have seen this, but then they even depicted this in a cartoon of The Simpsons. So if you ever see something like this taking place with the Shriners having like a little parade and they're in these little Corvettes, that's why. right? Just like the thing they're wearing on their head, that's obviously our fez. That's the Moorish headdress, right? But there's a reason why, also why these secrets are being kept. If you'll see this medallion, this is something that's given to diplomats and people who are overseas personnel by the Royal British Queen. Okay, and if you pay attention to it, you'll see that it's a pale-skinned man who's stepping on the head of a darker-skinned man. Okay, also the Queen of England wears this herself as well, this medallion, right? And so, you know, in many ways, the conquest of the Moors, it's never ended. They erased the name Moor so that we didn't even understand who we are. This image is from the Masonic Museum in Washington, D.C. And it's a Shriner who's, or, you know, it's a guy who's a member of the Mystic Order of the Mystic Order of the Veiled, the Enchanted Realm of the Prophets. I think I messed that up, but their headquarters is actually here in Columbus. And he's got on a black fez that says El Bay on it, right? And so in many ways, they're wearing our headdress and they're also carrying on our traditions, ruling as custodians of our empire. You know, and you know, they could say that, well, they abandoned their faith, they abandoned their ways, they're carrying it on. Okay, and they're not going to tell us who we are. A lot of people will deny this. But if people want to deny it, why is it that the greeting for Shriners, why is it Assalamu alaikum?
What? I did not know that.
That's the actual greeting for Shriners. You say Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. So if you're out with your fez or your turban on and you see someone who, I mean, I don't know how you would know they're a Shriner because they're not going to be wearing their fez unless they're at a Shriner event. But, you know, you can say Assalamu alaikum and they should return with, you know, peace be unto you, wa alaikum salam, right? And there's a reason why they do this, though. Okay. And if you ask me, I would say that Shriners take the Shahada too, which is where you declare that there's no God but Allah. And it's done in private. Now, once again, that's not going to be admitted. There's a lot of people who may try to say that this is not true, but there's a reason why, even with the images that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali took, everything that he did, the way that he stood, everything was done for a reason. So he had his hand in this image, you know, on his chest or on his stomach, and it's out in the open. You can see it. Yes. But then you see all of these other images where the people are hiding their hand, right? The hidden hand. So he was revealing, right? Instead of concealing. And so this is also known too within some of the secret orders that they have to conceal. You have to conceal. And so once again, not saying it's to knock, but it's knock them and all. It's just the truth has to be told, and no one's going to tell it except us. And so I want to say that the origins of these organizations are actually come from the Moors. There's a great book called The Golden Age of the Moors, written by Ibn van Sertima, and he has also several scholars who contributed to this book, like brother Jose Pimenta Bay, who's a professor in Kentucky, Sister Dana Marniche Reynolds, who's an anthropologist. She's been all over the world. She did excavations in Egypt. He's got a lot of scholars that contributed to this book. And in one of the chapters, Professor Jose Pimenta Bay is speaking about the origin of Freemasonry, okay? And just to look at this a little bit, says within the histories of such selective European societies as Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, and even the Shriners, one can find the allegorical remnants which reveal the considerable historical depth of the West. That's the whole entire Western civilization, especially those orders, to Moorish, Muslim erudition. Okay, there's several specific references to medieval Moorish connection to Masonry can be found. Even the name Mason means son of a Moor. And there's a, let me show you this image. If you look up the term Freemason and like Google Translate, say you want to translate it into German, what are you going to see? You're going to see the word Freemasonry, right? This is what it looks like. Freemasonry. That's how you say Freemason in German. Okay, but Mauer, Moor, that's Moor. Free Moor. It's the same thing. And I don't want anybody trying to say, well, you're just making stuff up. That's why we also have scholarly references, right? Everything in Golden Age of Moor has several references. Trust me, this brother's is a professor. He's not just going to throw that out there. Mason means son of a Moor if he can't back it up. So this is, not just the ramblings of someone who wants to claim everything. Also, just a little bit more reference, many native dances and stringed instruments that are now European have their roots in the Moorish cultures of Spain and Portugal. To the smiths of the Moors, probably the vastal. Let me skip this a little bit. Okay, so speaking about the development of major Masonic orders in Western Europe, they brought with them metaphysical and esoteric traditions and Masonic related sciences like algebra that were many thousands of years old. So just going back to this again, the orders received their origin from the Moor. Okay, even the creation of them, like the Shriners, they were given the duty to to protect certain parts of I think Israel, right? So they were created by Moors, and the Europeans were being given these instructions to do. So maybe, and this could be speculation, but I think it has a lot of truth to it. Maybe one of the duties was not to reveal. They have to do it themselves. Okay. So all of this stuff is being hidden. Now you, in all honesty, if you know who you are, if these are good people, they should assist you. They shouldn't be trying to hold and, keep these things down. That's why we're speaking openly and telling the truth. We're not trying to down anyone, but we have to tell the truth. So, at the end of the day, that's really what we have to do. We just have to be who we are, what we always were. Yes, at one point we were cut off from our history. Okay. But this is the return to who we truly are. We can't be Negroes because Negro is nihilus filius. Nihilus filius means you are non-descendable, right? Quasi-human. You don't have human rights, right? And we have to, the only way out is to return to the ways of our ancestors. That's also why we honor the man, the prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Once again, with that image down there, you see even the way that he wore his turban with the fez. This is something that has been going on here for a long time. We have to pick up our royal headdress and return to the ways of our forefathers. Going back to that old painting that's on this book, Becoming Christian, which is a very interesting name because this is how we became Christian. We had to give up our own ways, and not knowing that by for us, I mean, one reason to make sense of why an ancient Moor and in the past would not see anything wrong with joining another person's religion is because they would have seen the similarities between this religion and what they were already practicing, right? You have the same prophets, all of Abraham, all of those things are the same. Right. And so they maybe didn't, in many ways didn't see anything wrong, or they were making political alliances, but it worked against them because they were also being branded Negro, which means slave. And that means you descend from slaves, not the creators of civilization. And so I really think that this is something that affects us all, and it by returning to the ways of our ancestors for the people, the so-called Black people out there, this is how we can fix many of the things that are ailing our country, our people. And once again, it's something that affects everybody, like not just our people. We do have influence. We influence people of all ethnic groups, and we even spread out into other countries. You could be somewhere in Germany and you might see a person of European descent sagging their pants, just like the guy that I saw at Walmart. And it's like, what is going on here? Why are you doing this? Right. So they're being influenced. And some of the things may not be as innocent as doing something like that. That's just, you see children around. Nobody wants to see that. But some of the things too that we're being pushed towards, which would be things like not valuing our families, drug addiction, alcoholism. These are all things that go against our very nature. And the thing that's up here on the screen, this is what the prophet actually created. When he created the Moorish Science Temple of America, he created a theocracy, an Islamic society. Okay, and in doing that, let me show you one more thing too. In creating this this entity, right, that he created in Illinois, it's a body politic. A body politic has the potential to actually be a nation state capable of governing itself. Okay, and so when he created this religious society, he returned us to the ways of our ancestors. This book that's up here is Freemasonry of the Ancient Egyptians by Manly P. Hall. And he's speaking about ancient Egyptian society. Wow. And he said the government of Egypt was theocratic. While the pharaoh appeared to be the head of state, the priests were the actual governors of the empire. So it actually, it doesn't say that here, but the king was also a priest. It's a priest king. Okay. And then he's surrounded, maintained by a priesthood. And so the king is placed on his throne by the priests, maintained there by priestly influence, and remained the whole of his life under the guardianship and protection of the priesthood. So we always had these, you know, and not only that, but the temple, they actually called it a temple. The temple was the center of our civilization. And so you had a priest king maintained by a priesthood. And that's why we have, not here in the United States, but in other countries, that's why you have a prime minister.
Right. Wow.
That's the prime minister.
Okay.
Right. And their other cabinets of government will be ministers. There's the minister of defense, minister of medicine or health, whatever they want to call it, minister of education. Okay. And so they're the priesthood that are running things. But that even with that prime minister, though, even though he may be ruling that nation, they're also the priesthood that protects the king. And so you had the Queen of England that just made the transition, right, that just died. But those prime ministers all work to protect that queen, that king. Wow. They rule over, that's how they rule over the entire planet. Okay. And they switch that on us so that we don't even know it. And so that's why you'll have countries like Jamaica, and they can have a prime minister, but they're not really able to do the best for their people. Right, right. Barbados or Trinidad, one of those two countries just tried to publicly distance themselves from the Queen of England. They did that before she died. Okay. And the reason why something like that needs to be done for those people for real is because, once again, even their leaders have to take oath and protect that king or queen of England. Right. And so that's why the prophet created this for us here in North America, but also throughout the Caribbean, Central and South America, because our people in this entire region, we're all at the bottom in our societies. Living in Brazil, we saw how the majority of the people there look like regular Black people, and they're still at the bottom in their society. So this is something that ultimately is needed for all of us, and then ultimately for the entire world. So the purpose of the Moorish Science Temple of America is to uplift fallen humanity. That would, of course, start with us first, because we can't help anyone else if we're at the bottom, but then ultimately it's for the entire world, you know, to help everyone to realize our full potential. And it's really all about learning to subdue our lower self. And when you go back to ancient Egypt, that's what it was all about. It was all about subduing the lower self. So we're truly returning to the ways of our ancestors, not just in lip service. We're about doing the work on ourselves, building up our communities and building them off of these divine principles so that we can truly do something about the corruption and the things that we're going through. Okay. And this is the thing that, you know, when we look at it in the proper light, now it starts to make sense with some of the things that we see in history that shouldn't, you know, there should be no pyramids. Because when you look at the way that they're built, the precision and everything like that, it makes no sense if we all were cavemen, you know, just a few thousands of years ago. So that obviously is not true. But now when you look at it like this, you can understand how things have been suppressed. And in suppressing that holds us all back. you know? And so ultimately with us as Moorish Americans, the reason why I would say we're Muslims who practice Islam is not because we're trying to force everybody to do some religion. No, Islam ultimately means peace. Just yesterday was in an Ethiopian restaurant and I walk in and they thought I was Ethiopian. Yes. I didn't even know I looked like I was Ethiopian until I moved here. But they're like salam, salam, and I'm salam, you know? And so salam is in the Aramaic language. I think I'm saying that right. For Ethiopians, it means peace. Islam means peace. Shalom, you know, what Jews would say, shalom, it all means peace. So Islam means peace, and submitting to the will of the creator, whatever you call the creator, right, would be peace. We have these divine principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, which we hold ourselves to, which is actually ancient. And it all goes back to subduing our own carnal nature. This is why you'll see this image on the screen. We see things like this all the time. This is from an old tomb, you know, coffin from an Egyptian pharaoh, and you see the tools here, the flask for whipping the animal, and then the flail for you know, gently pulling them into you for the herder, for the shepherd, or the shepherd king. And these were all metaphorical tools for subduing our own lower animal self. You've got the shepherd staff for mercy and the flail for severity, and that gives you balance. We use both of these tools to subdue animals, right? And so these are, you know, this symbology was all over the place, over in Egypt over there, and also Egypt over here, right, in the temples. This was always there because at the end of our day, like, the temples were the center of our society, and we're always working on subduing our lower self. And the reason that we're in the position we're at now is because we kind of went in reverse. Wow. That's why our civilizations fell. That's why an Atlantis would have destroyed itself. But now it's time to go in the opposite direction. And I know I just did a lot of talking, but I hopefully, you know, if you have any questions or anything to say, feel free. I know I was going pretty long.
It was beautiful. No, I appreciate the dissertation, and the presentation is absolutely beautiful. And I'm telling you, it all goes back to, like you said, conquering our lower self. That ministered to me on so many different levels. Because now what I see in the music and the movies and everything, and even in our civilization, is blowing up the whole ideology of everything has to deal with your lower self. You know, the sacral chakra, being kicked into survival mode, and talking about sex, drugs, and all that. You see the opposite, or at the antithesis of what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know, I mean, maybe there's more learning that had to be done, and so that's why we had to fall even further. You know, we have to look at things, you know, with a positive outlook and understand it. You know, ultimately everything is in divine order, even if it looks like the bad guys are winning, right? There's no bad guys. There's a verse from the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America that says, without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. So even these things that we see that appear to be working against us, and they are doing this to us, it's only here to strengthen us. And if we weren't strong enough to overcome it, we wouldn't even be here. And I think the world really needs this message and needs this energy so that we can fulfill our purpose. And this is for all ethnic groups out there, everyone. You know, to understand, like, this, there's no they can't defeat us. Right? They are terrified of us. They are doing their job. You know, there's no they. Yeah, everything is in divine order. So, you know, some of these things that look negative is just there to strengthen us so that we can overcome it. In the Quran, revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, in Surah 2, Ayat 30, Allah is speaking to the angels. The angels are asking him why he would create man and make him his vice regent on earth. The vice regent is the earthly representative of God. They're like, he's going to be there causing mayhem and mischief. And Allah's just like responding to the angels, I know what you know not. And they're asking this because we have free will.
Yes.
We can go away from the the will of the higher self. I mean, the Allah, the creator. The higher self is always in unison with whatever you want to call the creator. It's always in unison. And if we learn to do this, we can always get the answer. We're always connected to everything, right? We always have that way. It's there. But we've fallen away. We've, gone into the I guess you could say we've totally subdued ourselves to our own animal nature and allowed it to run the show when it's supposed to be the other way around. But we always have the answer, right? And there's nothing really that could defeat us. If there was something that was able to defeat us, we wouldn't even be here. We came here because we're able to do it. So that, in the Quran, it says that God made us the vice regents of earth and gave us the full capacity to be the strength of Allah made manifest. That's what we're all supposed to do. So, regardless of what people call the creator, that's what we're here to do. I really think the world could use that type of energy and understanding so that we can truly fulfill our potential.
That's beautiful, beautiful. One of the things that you mentioned that was throughout your dissertation was the fez, and I just wondered, what does that represent? Because I see it has a cap, it covers your head, and it's red. So I mean, it's a headdress, it covers your head, it's red, it has a tassel, and we saw that throughout history. So I was wondering, what does that symbolism mean?
Yeah, so there's so many different things about the fez. There's some symbolism that show that the fez is tied to the womb, that this is like the navel, the umbilical cord. You also have an understanding of like the fez being able to, for us to be able to spin around like the whole way, like, 360 degrees, and that being symbolic of the knowledge, 360 degrees of knowledge. This has always been seen as the wearers of it as being scholars. This is why when you graduate, whatever you're graduating, high school, college, you wear the graduation cap, and it has the tassel. It's not, standing tall like a fez. It's like a flattened fez. But this is just something that's always been seen as something that learned people, that knowledgeable people wear. It's even been seen, or connected with having magical powers. There was this one magician from London, I think in the 70s and 80s. He was a comedian and he would do magic tricks, and all he would wear is a fez and a suit. And that just was like, just that, and wearing a turban just meant that you knew magic, right? They even show that in cartoons. Like there's a Woody Woodpecker cartoon where this mouse just like puts a fez on, and all of a sudden he knows magic. Genies, wow. Wearing the fez or turban symbolize that they know magic. They have otherworldly abilities, right? So it symbolizes knowledge and wisdom. Same way with the turban. And then also one reason too why women typically don't wear it, it's also associated with the womb, which you already have, right? So this is why men typically would wear the fez. Now you may see some orders like the Order of the Eastern Star that wear, but typically like it's for Moorish Americans, and then other Muslims all over the world, typically men wear it, right? But so the symbolism runs deep. And that's also why we'll see it in ancient cultures all over the world, not just in Africa, the Middle East, which is also Africa, also over here, even all the way out to Easter Island in the Pacific Ocean. So this is, and the reason why you'll see that, once again, Egypt, one of the reasons why we could say Egypt was in the Americas is because this was a worldwide civilization. The continents used to be together, and that wasn't billions of years ago. Right? There was a cataclysm that caused those continents to break apart. And so with that understanding, we can see then why the prophet said that our ancestors received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to come over here. And that we came over here before the great earthquake, which caused all this to happen. And so everywhere we went, we had temples, we had universities, we had, higher learning, civilization. And that's why we'll see remnants of it everywhere. There's a book from Gerald Massey called A Book of the Beginnings. and it's a huge book where he basically, Gerald Massey could understand the hieroglyphics. He was a man of European descent, and he gives his understanding of all the different nations of the world. And he's speaking about the Maori people all the way out in New Zealand, being connected to ancient Egypt, because they have that term, that name, Maori. Tamori was one of the names for Egypt. Tamori, the land of the Moors. That term Moor or Mer, because in Egypt you didn't have the vowels being placed. Yeah, Mer. You see it, ruler. The Moors were chiefs. Moor or Mer was the name for pyramids. Okay, and then referring to the people, you had the priest of Anu, the priesthood. They were called Moors or Moors. So, and even the name of the land, you'll hear people call it Kemet. I believe Kemet was just referring to the land around the Nile, and that's why Kemet meant the black land. It's referring to that area, that soil being black and fertile. But that whole area, Upper and Lower Egypt, all of that was called Tamori, and that was the land of the Moors. Okay, and so a lot of people don't know that. This is, something that, once again, it's been there. We just wouldn't even have known how to interpret that or to take that in to understand that, right? And so the vestiges of it are all over the world. And we had a worldwide civilization, and now it's time for us to come back into who we are.
I love the positive spin that you put on everything, about how everything happens in divine order, and how the Creator desire for us to get to just to come back to self and to know who we are. I think it's beautiful, to do that rather than focus on the negativity, because perhaps the Creator allow certain things to happen so that we could wake up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so that, there's nothing to be upset about. Like everything is working how it's supposed to. If it seems like it's taking longer, it's just because there's more learning that needs to be done here. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be light workers. If you're aware right now, you have a job to do, and that's really, I think that's what it is for most of us. We just have more work to do, and to raise our own vibrations, not on other people, because it always comes back to ourselves, right? Just by working on ourselves, being the best version of ourselves, that's how we truly impact the world, raising the vibrations. It always comes back to me, to you. Yeah.
Yes. Were you going to say something about this?
No, this is just another definition for Moor, having an Egyptian origin. This is from the Palermo stele. You can't really see this isn't a good quality, but you can't see the hieroglyphics, but they had that term Moor, and that basically was referring to the priesthood, the high priest of Anu. So you had this priesthood being called the Moors, and it wasn't just like one person. These were the people, the chiefs, because remember, the priesthood were the ones who maintained the king, the pharaoh.
If you have, go ahead.
Now, I would say that's why the Moors were the caretakers of the wisdom of ancient Egypt.
If you have time, I have 3 questions to ask you, and then I'll.
Sure.
So first, I want to make a statement. I guess one of them will be more of a statement, and that is the fez. I think it's just beautiful that some people say it represents the womb. And for me, it's like the man or the learned scholar is honoring his mother. I don't know if I'm taking it too deep, but I just think
that makes sense.
I think it's beautiful. And I've also heard that my sons, I know it's the sons of the Moors, but I wonder if you thought about this angle, and if it would make sense that it's my sons or mother's sons.
Yeah.
Could that be like, could it have served both meanings?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that just makes sense, and I'm trying to think, there's an order that has a similar title to that. I can't remember, but that it makes sense to me. Yeah. Definitely.
And I think sometimes when we think of Freemasons or Masonic order, automatically we think of negativity. However, when you study and you learn who you are and where you come from, you can see that Freemasonic order wasn't initially nefarious. It doesn't seem like it to me. It seemed like it was just a practice, maybe a science or a way of life.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's negative because for the most part, okay, the Moors they created this and they brought it to the Europeans so that they could preserve some of the sciences. In many cases, throughout Europe, the church was trying to suppress science.
Oh,
They're trying to suppress progress. And the Freemasons were the only ones that kept it alive and kept it going. So they were doing their job. And, you know, so I don't say any of this to knock them or to sound like we're trying to attack them. I'm not a Freemason, but I don't, you know, I'm not attacking Freemasons or any other orders at all. We're just revealing things that we could back up with actual sources to show that we're not making any of this up. And, you know, but in many ways they were preserving science, preserving art, even though it was coming under attack. And so sometimes they had to go against the Catholic Church.
And it would make sense. I mean, if Allah knew that we were going to fall, somebody had to preserve that knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you know, even the state that we're in now, even though everybody's not doing bad, we have a lot of people that, you know, our own people that have to clean themselves up, you know, and if they don't, you know, maybe things are going to have to get even worse. Who knows? Right. We don't know. You know, more cataclysms may have to happen. So we want to raise the vibration of the earth because, we were falling, and the ancient scientists, right, who understood the cycle of time and cycle of ages and how things were going, they preserved these, the mystery school, the ancient Egyptian mystery school, the mystery system, and they passed these things down in forms like Freemasonry. And this was given to the Europeans so that they could preserve it. And also it was spread around the world. They did their job. They didn't just keep everything to themselves. So it was preserved so that things wouldn't fall into total chaos, complete darkness.
Now I did notice, right, thank God, praise Allah, all praises to the Creator that we didn't fall into utter complete darkness. And we can see a resurgence of us waking up. But I did notice on some of the fezzes of the Freemasons or the Shriners that there was a, sword. So I'm imagining that's a message. Yeah. That perhaps they had to that maybe we were cut off from our knowledge, maybe.
Yeah. So I'm trying to see if I got an image if I have an image to pull up, but I don't think I do. But on the fez, many times you'll see that head. Some people say that it's the head of the Moabites, like the head of a woman, a Moorish woman. And then you've got that sword over the head. So on one aspect, okay, the sword is over their head if they tell the truth, if they reveal the secrets. But then also over us to keep us in subjugation. And it's similar to the way that you see the medallions that the Queen of England's wearing, where you got to keep them more subjugated. So, you know, and I mean, there's people who will deny that that's the case, but we can see that that's the case in the world. You know, it doesn't really matter what anyone else says. You can see that.
And thank you so much for explaining that. So I do have two questions. One was more like a statement about the flag and not the flag, but the fez, to ask you if my overstanding made sense or if it was correct. And then secondly, the flag. The flag is red and it has a green star. I know it used to have a pine cone. Can you explain to us what the star means or represents?
Okay, so for us, the simplest way to explain it just would be to go to what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali gave us. He gave us a simplified understanding because once again, he was coming to our people. You saw the images of us in the 1920s. Some people were sharecroppers or children of sharecroppers. So he just told us that the flag stands for our five divine principles, the highest principles known to man, and that they're ancient. And that's love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and that we are to make sure that that we always conduct our thoughts, deeds, and actions by these divine principles. Okay, and so that was the flag. If you ask people from Morocco over in North Africa, they'll probably tell you it stands for the 5 pillars of Islam.
Okay. Wow. Okay?
And that flag, or that image of that pentagram, that 5-pointed star, has been found over here. That image that's up here, that's from a stone inscription in Mexico, and they're saying from 600 to 800. It says DC, but they probably talking about BC.
That's amazing. Now that this the Moorish flag, or our flag, I've seen in the White House, and I saw President Obama, number 44, actually take pictures underneath the Moorish. Well, I think it was he and his wife. There was a Moorish flag, and then there was the red, white, and blue flag.
Yeah,
side by side. And I also saw a picture of President Clinton's wife beside the Moorish flag. So I just think it's interesting that they have both flags in the White House. So they're telling a story in the White House.
And it's like it's there, you know. And once again, like, we don't understand what we're seeing. Nobody's gonna tell us, you know, but it's there. It's always been there. And there's a reason why they always have to honor Morocco. Also, a reason why Morocco was the first to recognize them.
Yes.
Okay, and then we see that image from the inauguration of Washington, and you see that flag in the superior position, you know, so they were being welcomed in. And so you know, they turn around and they honor that so that they can continue to be successful. You must honor your forefathers to be successful, to come find that's in the Bible. It's in all the holy books. You have to honor your forefathers and foremothers to come into your divine covenant, your covenant with the Creator. And so for continued success, they honor Morocco. Always honor that they were the first to recognize them, and they will never go back on that.
So what does the red, white, and blue flag mean? What is it exactly if it's not the flag of the Moroccan Empire?
Okay, so some people will tell you that it's just a corporate banner, that it's not our flag, it doesn't represent us. I don't think that, because I'm looking at even the colors that it's using, red, white, and blue. All of that is ours. When you look at ancient Egypt, you had the red crown, I believe, for Upper Egypt, and the blue crown for Lower Egypt. Sometimes you would have a ruler of Upper and Lower Egypt. Sometimes you would have a ruler who ruled Upper and Lower Egypt, and they wore the crown that had red, white, and blue. And it symbolized them, you know, running the whole thing. And that also stood for like the Red Sea, the white and the blue now. And also you see the White House, right? White House in Spanish is Casablanca. Casablanca is the largest city in Morocco. Everything is symbolic for our own ancient kingdom, and it's all paying honor to it. Even if it looks like things are flipped on us, it's all there. So I wouldn't give away anything. You know, I wouldn't give away the U.S. flag. We honor that. That's why also the Prophet Noble Drew Ali set that up. We honor it, right? And it's ours. And we can see how the red flag is ours, and I can break that down. But that the bars and stripes, all of that is ours. It's because it's based off of our ancient science. And one of the reasons why they would honor ancient Egypt, it's the same reason why when you go to Washington, there's this huge obelisk, right? They call it the Washington Monument. They have all of this stuff. They even have DC set up like ancient Egypt. They're honoring that so that they can be successful. And it's all ours. We shouldn't give away any of it. And not saying it like, well, it's not everyone else's too. I'm just saying it's based off of our ancient science. So, you know, it all belongs to us, you know?
I love your positive spin, you know, that it's all in honor of us. It's not a negative thing, because you will hear some people say DC is mimicked after Egypt, like how dare they, how could they do that? It's a shame. But you're saying it's actually paying homage to
like
our empire.
look, if they know that making these that by continuing these systems that worked for thousands of years, like how old is the United States of America? Like 240 years or something like that. You know, it's not that old. How many civilizations that do we know of that lasted, you know, for thousands of years? Like the Moors ruled Europe for nearly 800 years, but like Egypt's going back thousands of years, right? According to their records, tens of thousands, maybe even more. So they're honoring something with that much power so that they can continue to be in power. So not like, they're not saying that to knock them, but they're honoring that so that they can tap into that power too, right? Everything has double meanings. Like even the 4th of July, it's really about the heliacal rising of Sirius. It has nothing to do with all the stuff that we've been taught. And so they're honoring that. And they popping off the fireworks on that day. And it's all symbolic of this traditions that's been coming from, you know, a culture that's thousands of years old. And so, you know, that's something that we should do too. We should tap into our own energy and our own ancient culture. And I wouldn't throw away any of that stuff though, because it has meaning, it's powerful, and that's why this nation is so powerful, even now, even in its downfall.
Yes. When I tell you, you have truly raised my vibrations. And I say that all the time on my channel, and I mean it. But the level of knowledge and wisdom and information that you have is deep. It's on a spiritual level, you know, and it spoke to me, it resonated with me. It makes me happy about being a part of this vast empire, this beautiful culture, you know, that I only knew a little bit about. So I thank you and I honor you, and I honor your wife too, because in order to do such a great work, you know, you will have to be in partnership or in alignment with, you know, a woman who supports your dream and your vision. So I just say, thank you so much. I honor you. I'm ecstatic. I'm pleased. And this would lead me to my last question. I feel that, and you can help me out here, all the information that you're talking about today is important as we see the restoration of the Republic, our restored Republic, which is something that would benefit us all of us here in America, every ethnicity, and it assists the entire planet.
Yes, definitely. No, so, oh no, I'm sorry.
No. So yeah, I just wanted you to respond to that in your own way.
Yeah, so I think that this is of the utmost importance, you know, because with the way that things are going, I mean, with the current power structure, they're polluting the ocean, the genetically modified foods. Like, I don't even want to go on about all that negative stuff, but we know, like probably most of us know it's bad. It's really bad. And nothing's going to change if we don't do it. And so that's why too, I wanted to show the imagery of what I think Trump is speaking to us in code. I'm not trying to say he's trying to save us all. I'm just saying, you know, putting a positive spin on it, because I think that if we truly live up to our potential, right, of returning to the ways of our ancestors, that means doing the work on fixing ourselves. And that's most important, because we can't look to anyone else to come and save us. And by us taking back that personal responsibility, we can actually make the world a better place and realize our full potential, and to have a true republic where in actuality, the government is supposed to be for the people. All of the wealth and gold of the land belongs to the people, right? You can't send billions of dollars off to Ukraine or anywhere else. There's no reason anyone here should be starving, poor, not having healthcare. Especially we lived in Brazil, so-called third world country, and they have free healthcare. Like, why can't we do that here? So, you know, no one's going to do that if we don't put pressure on the people that we have as representatives. And so in a, you know, representative form of government, which actually goes back to what our ancestors had, even the indigenous people here. The Europeans came and they learned from them. You know, there were women representatives in government. They didn't make up any of that stuff. You know, everything was shown with the white pine cone, all of that stuff that they took on, the Great Law of Peace. They also sat at the feet of the Iroquois Confederation and these other tribes and learned how to run government. They were coming from feudal systems. And I don't say this to knock anyone, please, this is history. They were coming from feudal systems with lords who represented the monarch, and you were either in nobility, or you were a merchant, or you were a peasant, and that's it. And as things changed and progressed, even up into the Industrial Revolution, you still had merchants, nobility, and peasants. Because, you know, when you had coal mining and you know, industry moving, those people, you know, the peasant class, they were still at the bottom. Right. So this was the land of milk and honey. Right. And it started to affect the entire world and change the world. So America is beautiful, and it's great that we have all these people here from all over the world. We can all learn, we all bring and contribute to this. This is a message of love, and we can truly realize our potential, because what we've done, you know, it's been good and it's been bad, but we can make it even better. You know, so we do need to return to our divine principles, and you know, instead of the degradation and the you know, the ridiculousness of the things are headed towards, we need to turn it around. And in order, you know, to fully come into that form of government with representatives that really speak for the people and do the will of the people, and all of these resources, all of this money and things that we have here, it's for us. That's what we have to go back to, and you know, drain the swamp, whatever, get rid of all of these rats that are self-serving. No one's going to do it if we don't step up. So I think this is of the utmost importance, and you know, I'm all for it.
And I honor you. I honor you because because of what you said in your bio, the last part of that, all of it is beautiful. I'm just keying in on the last part of that. You said you and your wife are leaders of the local temple, and you teach and do the great work of uplifting fallen humanity.
Yes.
So it's not just one specific race, it's humanity. You're uplifting us all, doing the work of helping us to discover self, who we are, and for us to learn the 5 divine principles and live by them.
Yes. Yes, that's what it's truly about. We honor you too. And one thing too that we did to at least to contribute to helping people to realize their potential years ago. Believe you got our book. My wife and I wrote a book that's got like an audio book and a neuro-linguistic programming portion of it called the 40-Day Master System. Yes. And it's all about learning how to tap into your own abilities, realizing your full potential, right? And it's called the 40-Day Master System. Anyone can get that at 40daymastersystem.com. Okay. But that's just one of the things that we did to assist. And then also with our temple in Central Ohio, anyone that wants to help us do the good work, whether you want to join or just want to assist, it's MoorsinAmericans.com, and anyone can come and help in the great work, because, you know, I think it's something that we need all Americans to work together on, whether you're Amish or whatever. Like, you know, we can all work together. We can learn a lot from the Amish. They have their own communities, they're growing their own food. So I'm saying anyone who wants to assist and help, please come to the table and let's work together to truly make this a better place, to truly make it great again.
To make America great again, to make Earth great again.
Yes, make the Earth great again.
Go on.
Yes, and just imagine if, you know, if people, like all the young people that are rapping, if they, instead of like talking about selling drugs and killing people and, you know, just being sexually immoral, if they were talking about raising your vibration, growing your own food, being better people. I mean, like, that's possible. And we have influence. People in Japan, people all over the world are being influenced by us in the negative way. So we could use our power for good. you know? So this is really important for us to do our part to help to clean up and to assist to make the world a better place.
That's absolutely beautiful. I heard you talk about the 40-day, what is it, 40-day master system?
Yes.
I remember you telling me about that, I want to say years ago.
Yeah, you might have gotten it years ago. I know we got your book too, but yeah, just go to 40daymastersystem.com. And we wrote that book to assist others in realizing their potential, tapping into the hidden power within. You know, we all create our reality ultimately. And so that's just one thing that we wanted to do to contribute. It's also got a portion of self-hypnosis into it. There's an audio portion, there's a book you can read or you can listen to. And it's a program that you do for 40 days. You just listen to the self-hypnosis portion and follow the instructions, and it can help you to change your life, to take control of the power that we all have within us. It's like untapped potential. Just everyone has this unlimited potential. There's no reason for any of us to to be feeling down on ourselves or feel like we can't accomplish our goals, and really want to help people do that, because that's really what it's about. If we're all at least working towards realizing our potential, we have nothing to worry about. This world will be amazing, but better than we could even imagine.
That is beautiful. I'm ready for us ascending to the higher dimensions. I'm so ready for it. That's why I keep talking about it on my channel. And I see you doing the work to contribute to that. And you didn't ask for this, but I'm just wondering if someone wanted to support the work that you're doing, how could we support you? Financially,
Okay.
I'm talking about financially right now.
Okay, well, on Cash App, could just Cash App $MoorsinAmerica,
Okay.
MoorsinAmerica, $MoorsinAmerica. And want a temple, just go to MoorisAmericans.com, MoorisAmericans.com. And there's you can just click on the button to donate at the top, or to send dues to the temple, and anyone can donate.
I'm really interested in studying more, and maybe learning of how we could start a temple in my community.
You can we also just go to MoorisAmericans.com. I'll send you the information, but we do the classes on Zoom too. We do them every week, every Friday and Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's open to the whole world. It doesn't matter where you live. It's not just for Black people. It's open to everyone. Okay.
So I want to thank you so much for opening our eyes, for teaching us, for inspiring us, for raising our vibrations. And before I end, I just want to tell everybody that Brother Lloyd Michael Douglas, or also known as Douglas L, can be found on he has a podcast at MoorsinAmerica.com. Is that correct?
Yes.
Podcast, MoorsinAmerica. Right. He has a YouTube channel that's called Moors in America. Is it just Moors in America? Seems like I see it.
Yeah, on YouTube, I think it's Moors in America 7.
Moors in America 7.
Moors in America 7.
And
but if you type Moors in America, it's going to come up. Okay.
And I love the fezzes. So family, if you're interested in the fez, which I know my son is, my eldest son is interested, just visit his store at www.moorishfez.com. Is that correct? Okay. Yes. And then his temple website is www.moorishamericans with an S, plural.com. And his marketing services is at what is that?
realtrafficmarketing.com. That's what I do for a living. So been doing it for years. I can help anyone with their business to increase clients, to find more leads, whatever type of business you have. I work for small businesses, large corporations, and that's what I do. So whether you need social media marketing or just internet marketing for your website, want to come up higher on Google, can do it for you.
What about branding? Do you help with branding?
I can assist you with that too. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty much the whole marketing package, everything to help you increase your business.
Okay. Okay. Well, you've given us a whole lot, and I'm looking forward to actually replaying this and studying and taking notes. So thank you so very much. It was an honor and a great pleasure. I look forward to reading your book again. I look forward to working with this Moor Science Temple because it's a part of my heritage, you know, so I think that's exciting. And I just want to tell the family that's watching us here to please go to MoorsinAmerica 7 on YouTube, like his video, like his channel, subscribe to his channel, and share, family.
Yes.
This type of information is something that you need to know, and you need to pass it down to your posterity or your children's children so that they can know who we are. And it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are. This is great information for us all as we ascend in consciousness and as we realize our greatest potential that the Creator desires for us to have. So before I close, I want to know if you have any final words.
I just wanted to say gratitude, great gratitude to you. We appreciate you so much. You're doing a great job. We love your podcast, and it's an honor to be on here. And thank you so much for having me on, and we appreciate you.
Thank you so much. So family, we hope, actually, I know we've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the beautiful, magnificent, glorious reality that you desire and deserve. With that being said, good night, family. We love you.
We love you. Yes.
From the bottom of our hearts. Good night.
All right.
Peace, brother.
Peace
Tell
and
the
love,
wife I say
everybody.
good night. Peace and love. Peace and love and prosperity.
Peace and love.